My last one, I'm taking my time. Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier, Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent, Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Greville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labey.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ayer.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Ghost. Monsieur le député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le député Moore. Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Porret.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Wall.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf.
Présent.
Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Feltham. Madame le député Binet.
Présente.
Madame le député Jehan. Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell. Monsieur le député Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis. Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Monsieur Vaillant.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plu de commettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné à t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi la règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Défaut.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Défaut.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Défaut.
Monsieur le député Ghost.
Sir, Deputy Gorst is attending the Labour Party conference and asks you to be marked as away on state members' business, sir.
Yes. The modest sense of unreality we marked away as state's business. Yes.
Madame le Deputy Moore.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le Deputy Jehan.
Sir, Deputy Jehan has a medical appointment this morning and will be joining us as soon as she can.
Excusez. Les états sont constitués.
Sir, may I raise the defo on Deputy Tadier and Deputy Southern, please?
Take them in turn then. Does everyone agree the defo is raised on Deputy Tadier and on Deputy Southern? Very well. Announcements or communications from the presiding officer. I am pleased to advise the Assembly that Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal will be visiting the island over Tuesday the 4th and Wednesday the 5th of November this year. During her visit, the Princess Royal will carry out the following engagements. Firstly, she will unveil a portrait of Their Majesties King Charles III and Queen Camilla, commemorating their visit to Jersey last year. She will visit the Jersey branch of the Royal Air Forces Association, celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. She will visit and tour the newly refurbished Jersey Opera House, celebrating its 125th anniversary, and as patron of the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust, recognising that in 2025 its founder, Gerald Durrell, would have been celebrating his 100th birthday. The Princess Royal will attend the Durrell Lecture, celebrating the Rewild of Our World Strategy 2017 to 2025 at the Jersey Opera House. Very well. Members will have been saddened to hear that Mr Brian Richardson, who served as Constable of Trinity in the 1990s, passed away on the 11th of September, aged 76. A former plumber, Mr Richardson was a passionate supporter of the honorary system and was one of only a few people to have held multiple roles within the parish, acting as Constable's Officer, Vintenier, Centenier and Procureur in Trinity, before being elected as Constable in July of 1993. During his tenure, he was instrumental in overseeing major roadworks within the parish. He served just one term in the Assembly, taking on a role in the Harbours and Airports Committee, and he retired from politics in 1996. He was married to Maureen and was a much-loved father, stepfather, and our thoughts today are with his family at this time. I would like to ask members to rise and keep a minute's silence in his memory. May he rest in peace. There is no items under B, C, and under D.
Sir, may I just inform the Assembly that I have a medical appointment later in the day, so I may miss a small portion of the Assembly whilst I attend that.
Thank you very much, Deputy. We now come to notification of lodged propositions. The following have been lodged. Health and Care Jersey Advisory Board and Partnership Board B52 amendment, lodged by the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. Draft Sea Fisheries Minimum Size Limited's Jersey Amendment Regulations P53 amendment, lodged by the Minister for the Environment. Statutory pre-sale agreements for standard residential property transactions P61 amendment, lodged by the Council of Ministers. proposed budget government plan 2026-29, P70, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Draft Jersey Mutual Insurance Society Transfer Jersey Law, P71, lodged by the Chief Minister. And draft Income Support Jersey Amendment Number 2, Regulations, P72, lodged by the Minister for Social Security. Members should be advised that in accordance with Standing Order 1372B, I have received written notice from Deputy Andrews of St Helier North indicating his wish to resign from the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. And we come on now to questions. Answers have been tabled to written questions and have been circulated to members in the normal way. And now to oral questions. The first oral question is from Deputy Wilson, who will ask a question of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister provide detail of the additional 1.7 million savings identified in the States of Jersey Group 2024 annual report and accounts, generated above the original government efficiency targets established in the government plan for 2024-27?
Thank you, sir. Good morning. The additional £1.7 million of savings reported for 2024 relate solely to Health and Care Jersey. These were above the original efficiency savings target and were required to mitigate unanticipated budget pressures within the department during the year. The savings were achieved primarily through careful management of the workforce and vacancies, procurement savings from a more centralised buying approach, and an increase in income from private patients. The original target for Health and Care Financial Recovery Programme was £5 billion. In total, just over 6.7 million was delivered. Thank you.
Yes. Supplementary question? Yes.
Thank you, sir. Given the additional savings, could the Chief Minister explain why these opportunities were not identified and delivered as part of the original plan? Does this suggest that perhaps the government's planning and oversight processes are failing to capture some of the potential efficiencies up front? And could he tell us what steps he's going to take to prevent such oversights in the future if this is what happened?
I don't think there was any oversight as such when efficiencies and savings plans are put in place are based on best estimates and best efforts. Just across every department, we will see situations and circumstances where some efficiency savings aren't met and some are exceeded, and change in circumstances during the year means sometimes we have to operate on the go, as it were, and that's what happened in this case. As I said before, the additional efficiency savings were made due to budgetary pressures, and the department acted accordingly to get the extra savings required, sir.
Much. Well, we come to question 2 that Deputy Andrews will ask of the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state the total amount of outstanding debt owed by Andium Homes, Ports of Jersey and the Jersey Development Company, and advise whether any consideration has been given to the ongoing servicing of this level of debt?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So the outstanding debt of each organisation is currently Andium Homes, £488.1 million, Ports of Jersey, £47 million, States of Jersey Development Company, £36.1 million. Each of these organisations operates under the oversight of an independent and professional board, which is responsible for managing their finances, including the monitoring and servicing of debt. I receive regular updates through quarterly shareholder meetings, and I'm satisfied that the boards are exercising sound financial governance and oversight. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. Obviously, the Minister is currently undertaking work to review Andium Homes' rental policy, and I want to know whether there are any concerns that she has about the potential lowering of rents and the ability to then service the debts. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I think the piece of work that the Deputy refers to is being conducted by the Minister for Housing. I haven't been directly involved in that as yet. But yes, if rent, if rents are reduced, then that will have an impact. It may have an impact on Andium's ability to service the debt going forward, and that is something that does need to be taken very carefully into account. Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Would the Minister confirm if all debt guaranteed by the public, all outstanding debt for the organisations, for the companies that were mentioned, guaranteed by the public?
No, sir, I don't believe there are guarantees, formal guarantees. Each company enters into its financing arrangements independently. I don't recollect signing any guarantees. And the companies, the responsibility of the payment of the debt in the first instance rests with the directors. But each company will have considered very carefully the amount it borrows and the way in which it's going to repay. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you. Just to ensure that, would the Minister confirm that none of the outstanding debt borrowing by the company is guaranteed by the states? And if not, there is a maximum debt ceiling set to each of these entities because they're still public-owned entities?
So, as I say, I'm not aware that the government has given formal guarantees. I'm quite sure we haven't given formal guarantees. The debt, for example, the Andium debt will be secured. If it is secured, it will be secured against its assets. It has something like 300% asset to debt coverage. Its assets are worth significantly more than the amount of the debt. And each, as I say, the raising of the debt is considered by the directors in line with professional advice, and we are then consulted as appropriate. Thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Andrew.
Thank you, sir. Obviously, the ports of Jersey have unveiled plans at the harbour, and that will obviously require borrowing. And I just want to know whether the Treasury Minister is concerned that this potentially could have an impact for service users who could then be facing higher charges. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So I don't believe that, I haven't seen details about how that debt will be raised or secured. I am sure that the ports of Jersey will take professional advice on that, and I'm sure that everybody will use their best endeavours to ensure that there are no increases as a result of the debt. I don't think the public, I would be surprised, very surprised, if the public were being asked basically to pay more to refund borrowing. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Minister. The third question will be asked by the Constable of St Martin of the Minister for Social Security. Constable.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, has been given to following the UK in amending the Employment Jersey Law 2003 to prohibit the use of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, in cases involving sexual harassment, discrimination or other forms of misconduct? And in the absence of such legislation, what safeguards currently exist to ensure that NDAs are not used to silence victims of workplace abuse or discrimination in Jersey?
Minister.
Thank you, Sarah, and I thank the Constable for her question. She knows that this is a subject that is of great concern to me, as I said to the scrutiny panel when I met them last week. Non-disclosure agreements should not be being used to cover up instances of sexual harassment or discrimination. The UK proposal to which the Constable refers still has some way to go before it becomes law, and my view is that similar action in Jersey should be pursued through the work of the Employment Forum. Given where we stand in terms of the forthcoming election and my published work programme, it would not be feasible to make meaningful progress on this issue before the end of this parliamentary term, as my team is currently focusing on completion of the whistleblowing legislation. However, the discrimination law is clear. Protections are in place for those who experience poor treatment in the workplace, and I encourage those who are affected by such behaviours to use the tribunal process to seek redress. But I do have to say to the Assembly that I do remain disappointed that the Employment Forum's recommendation in relation to compensation for discriminatory behaviour was rejected due to an amendment
on compensation limits, we had the opportunity to send a powerful message that discrimination in all its forms would not and should not be tolerated, and that sanctions should be meaningful, but we failed to do so. I hope that a future Assembly will have more success when it comes to agreeing appropriate levels of compensation for islanders whose lives can be blighted by discriminatory behaviours.
Supplemental question, Constable?
No, thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for her response on this, and I think she sent out quite a clear message. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And would the Minister seek to collect some data on how many NDAs have been signed across various departments, parishes, any data that can be collected? I think that would be a good short-term step to take.
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for her question. I note that she mentioned government employees and parishes where I think potentially there could be possibility to collect information. Obviously, I'm not responsible for that data. That question would be better asked to the Chair of the States Employment Board and maybe the Committee de Connétable.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Would the Minister feel able to raise this herself with SEB?
Yes, I'm always happy to raise matters of concern such as this with the States Employment Board.
Deputy Balash.
So my experience as a member of the States Employment Board showed that NDAs were used as a matter of routine in cases against the SEB before the Employment Tribunal. Would the Minister agree to request the States Employment Board to reconsider its stance in relation to NDAs and to limit them to cases where they were absolutely necessary?
Sir, I think any employer should be limiting NDAs to cases where it's absolutely necessary. Of course, any member can speak to members of the States Employment Board, which do represent this Assembly, and make their views known. And I encourage the Deputy to make his views known to the Chair and the Vice Chair of the States Employment Board.
Supplemental question, Deputy Balash? Supplemental question? Well, I have Deputies Renouf, Kovac, Tadier, and then final supplementary. No other questions? Deputy Renouf.
So is the Minister aware of any conversations that have been had between ministers or with the States Employment Board on the subject of NDAs relating to harassment and particularly with review to suggesting that they would not be a good idea?
No, sir, I'm not aware of any such conversations. I believe that matters regarding the States Employment Board are always subject to confidentiality. I am not a member of the States Employment Board.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir, and developing the theme of Deputy Dublay's question, is it something that the Minister would feel able to approach the States Employment Board with to express her ministerial view on that?
Sir, I think all members of the States Employment Board are in this Assembly and have heard my message loud and clear today about my view on matters of non-disclosure and treatment in the workplace.
Very well. Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister aware what guidance or support mechanisms are currently available to employees in Jersey who may be asked to sign an NDA in circumstances involving alleged misconduct to ensure they fully understand their rights and are not deterred from seeking justice?
Yes, please.
Sir, of course, any employee has the right to join a trade union who would be best placed to provide the best possible advice in that type of situation, but also the Jersey Advisory and Conciliatory Service is available to provide objective advice to both employers and employees about appropriate processes.
Supplemental, no? Very well. Deputy Tadier.
Is the Minister concerned that where a member, an employee, has been engaging with, has been dismissed and doesn't wish to accept an offer from the employer, maybe in this case the SEB, that if they then go to tribunal and their case is upheld, they may not get any compensation if they've refused an offer? and that the reason they may have refused that initial offer could be linked to the fact that they didn't want to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Does the Minister think that is fair and that there should be a reconsideration also of the tribunal and employment law?
Obviously, I can't comment on specific cases that may or may not have been through the tribunal. What I would say is, as I said in my initial answer to the first question, I would encourage and would want processes to be ones that would enable people to seek recompense through the tribunal process. And I would be concerned if matters were that people were being discouraged from using the correct process because of outcomes in certain cases.
Supplementary question, Deputy Tadier?
Yeah, I'd simply ask again if the Minister would commit to looking at, I think it's Article 77.2, Article 77E of the relevant law, which allows the tribunal to basically reduce or the offer that could be made, compensation that would be made if an offer has been refused, given the fact that that person may wish for the matter to be dealt with in a public forum, and therefore it seems to me reasonable that somebody shouldn't be penalised for wanting to go through a public process rather than a closed process involving an NDA. Does the Minister agree to look into that?
Yes, sir, I am more than happy to look into that.
Final supplementary, Connie-Tab? Connie-Tab, St Martin, final supplementary?
No, thank you, sir. Sorry.
Come to question 4. The Deputy IEA will ask for the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the publication of our 142-2025 Better Business Support Package Quarter 1 and 2 Delivery Report, will the Minister explain the rationale behind the allocation of £2 million to Visit Jersey and £1 million to Ports of Jersey, and is it his intention to give similar grants to these two entities next year? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Better Business Support Package is designed to provide key investments into our economy to help secure increased productivity and its long-term growth. The package, as the Assembly will know, is a 2-year programme, and whilst we'll be evaluating the impacts of the investment, it is highly likely that the grants will remain the same in 2026.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Visit Jersey received £5 million from the government in 2018, and they still receive £5 million in 2024. This is clearly a large reduction in real terms, taking inflation into account. Has the Minister made this £2 million allocation because he accepts that Visit Jersey is underfunded? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I do think that Visit Jersey has struggled with funding because that funding hadn't changed for many, many years. And sir, it is absolutely correct that obviously an extra £2 million in funding this year and an extra £2 million in funding the next year will be of great value for Visit Jersey and in promoting the island as a tourism destination.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. We know that the passengers' numbers and hotel nights as our key performance indicators to Visit Jersey, yet both are falling. What specific performance measures, targets, has the Minister attached to £2 million grant, and how will islanders know that this investment delivers value for money?
Sir, there are key performance indicators around all of the grants via the Better Business Support Package. I could not recall them all right now, but I would be happy to advise the Deputy via email.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
It would be, first of all, thank you for the Minister that hopefully it will be published. It's not just for my attention or statesman, but attention also for the public. And would the Minister confirm that the most important key performance indicator for the investment is actually increased visitors' numbers and their night stay and investing in the economy?
The whole concept behind the extra visitor support money for Visit Jersey was entirely to try to secure as many visitors as possible. I think that also needs to be balanced off with the environment with which they're working in. And so whether it is always an increased amount of visitors, I think is hard to guarantee. But the idea is to enable them to advertise and sell Jersey to as many people as possible to, yes, hopefully increase the number of visitors to the island.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. This is kind of following up from the previous question, because I'm also interested for the public to understand what specific outcomes or benefits, the few main ones, does the Minister expect from the 2 million allocated both to Visit Jersey and Ports of Jersey? And will future funding be subject to performance review or clear conditions before they repeat next year?
So the Better Business Support Package was designed to be a 2-year package, and there is an expectation that there would be this additional grant for Visit Jersey next year as well. I mean, if they were to have failed in some ways against the expectations, then maybe it be reviewed. But my understanding is that Visit Jersey is deploying the money as would be expected. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question. Final supplementary question, Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. Marketing of Jersey as a tourist attraction has been increasingly underfunded, and we need to raise our profile as a holiday destination. A lot of this funding has gone to promote the Bergerac TV series. Does the Minister have data to suggest that this has increased visitor numbers, or could the money have been better directed? Thank you, sir.
So the decision to deploy that, any funding by Visit Jersey onto the Bergerac TV series was entirely that of Visit Jersey's. In their view, it was, they believed, the best way to create an understanding and promotion of Jersey. And so it was their decision. The concept with arm's length organisations is that they are expert organisations who themselves decide where best to spend this money to best effect. So that decision was theirs, sir. With regard to funding, I do believe we need to increase funding for Visit Jersey and for the tourism economy. That is something in the world where inflation, certainly advertising inflation, has been significant over the past 10 years. There's no doubt that there has been a diminishment in real terms in Visit Jersey's budget, and I will continue to work with fellow ministers to try to find sources to increase their funding on a more stable basis beyond these 2 years.
We come now to question 5. The Deputy Gardener will ask the Minister for Children and Families. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the adoption of Amendment 18 to the Budget Government Plan 25-2028, which allocated funding to deliver a play strategy for Jersey, will the Minister provide an update on the progress made today?
Minister.
Sir, I've asked my Assistant Minister to answer this question, as he has delegated authority for that area, and Deputy Gardner has agreed to that.
Very well.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. The play strategy remains on track for completion by the end of this year. Stakeholder consultations, including engagement with children and young people, were successfully concluded earlier this year. The strategy is being formed by a wide range of recent data and feedback from children and young people, including insights from the Right to Play report produced by the previous Jersey Youth Parliament. The initial draft of the strategy has been circulated to stakeholders for feedback, and a review meeting held to discuss the first draft. The draft will then be presented to the School Council Network on the 8th of October to gather further input directly from children. Following this, revisions will be made and the updated draft will be shared again with stakeholders prior to finalisation and publication in mid-December.
Supplemental question?
Thank you for the Assistant Minister, and it's great news that it will be published in mid-December. Would the Assistant Minister advise what funding, if any, has been ring-fenced in the budget 2026, specifically for delivering new and upgraded places, spaces, which probably envisaged within the strategy?
Thank you, sir. So once the strategy is produced, there will be identified actions that will be taken forward with a steering and delivery group. And that will focus on internal resources and processes that can be used to create play spaces and inspire children and their parents or guardians to have more interactive play. But beyond that, there is nothing specifically allocated monetary-wise in the budget. So.
Deputy Miles. Deputy Miles.
Sorry, sir.
Following the Assistant Minister's last answer that there's no budget allocated to this, what is the expectation on the parishes to fund the play facilities that have been identified? And has there been any direct consultation with the Comité de Connétable?
I thank the Deputy for that question. Yes, there was a presentation to the Comité de Connétable, and there was certainly a good soundings from all parishes that there was a willingness to create play spaces and work with government to do so. And, you know, it's down to a question of what monies are available and how we can work with other stakeholders to produce those play spaces. But there was certainly good interaction with the Comité de Connétable. On that note, we've also produced a map of all the available play spaces throughout the island and showing their accessibility and what type of apparatus is involved in each of those play spaces. So.
Supplementary question?
I thank the Assistant Minister for the answer. So on the basis that there has been consultation, on the basis that there is no budget, can the Minister confirm that there is an expectation that the parishes will need to fund the play equipment?
Thank you, sir. Yes, I think there is an expectation that you know, there will be monies forthcoming, and of course each individual parish has their own way of doing that. So it's you know, I know within my own parish we're creating, or the Connétable will be creating a play space as part of a development behind the parish hall. So I think it's just getting that thinking involved in all developments of how play spaces can be incorporated into them. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. It's really great to hear the progress on this. Part of the original plan was to have a dedicated play officer who could deliver the play strategy. Is this still planned as part of this strategy? And if not, could the Minister explain why?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's more to have a group of people who are, you know, we've got lots of people in Jersey who are really passionate about play and how it helps young people develop. So we've got lots of existing resource across government and in the wider community who are really keen to progress this work, and we need to harness that enthusiasm, and that will be the throughput of the strategy, is that we will have a group that carries forward on the play strategy and make sure that it delivers, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy?
I thank the Minister for his answer, and I understand that the steering group will be critical. Does the steering group agree that no play officer is needed? If they haven't been asked about this, could the Minister commit to consulting with the steering group about whether they think a dedicated play officer is necessary?
Yes, thank you, sir. I'll certainly take that back to the lead officer and we'll take that forward in any future discussions.
Well, I have Deputies Kovac, Connétable St Bragg, Connétable St Martin, then final supplementary. Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. From the previous question as well, which departments exactly or membership has the steering group leading on delivery of the play strategy, and how are they coordinating efforts, considering that the expectation is the parishes to fund that? And also, how is the intention to address both urban and rural needs for play spaces equally considered in all that?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, the strategy delivery group doesn't have a terms of reference yet. You know, that will be the throughput from the play strategy. So all those pieces that the deputy has highlighted will be in our thinking when developing a terms of reference for that group.
Supplemental question, Deputy Kovac. Connétable St Bragg.
Thank you, sir. Whilst I commend the Assistant Minister for the strategy he's instigated, would he confirm that my understanding is correct and that there is no funding coming from government to parishes to implement the strategy as proposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. That is currently the case at the moment. That's correct.
Supplemental question, Connétable.
Thank you, sir. And will the Assistant Minister consider providing such funding to parishes to enable them to instigate play parks to a greater extent than they are at the present, so that we can comply with the strategy as proposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think that will need to be forthcoming in future budgets, and you know these things won't happen on their own, and they won't happen without funding. So yes, that will have to form part of thinking of future budgeting processes.
Constable St Martin.
Thank you, sir. I think the Assistant Minister will agree that the parishes have been delivering and providing amazing playgrounds and play spaces. Are there any specific grants available to parishes? We did receive a grant of 5,000 for our playground, which we're very grateful for. But the playground and the Viking swing that we provided in St Martin cost in the region of 150,000. So 145,000 we actually managed to provide via the donations, which is not an easy task. As this is a government policy and all the parishes pay the all-island rate, which I think a lot of people are not aware of. Do you think it's fair that this play strategy should be financed by totally financed by parishes who are all, you know, well, speaking for St Martin, we're all quite strapped for cash, and we all, you know, we operate on a really shoestring budget. So there was a will there, and there's a way. We've got so many parishes doing.
I think we do have to get to the final
yeah,
question on it.
I don't think it's fair of the government to say they have a play strategy and then not offer any funds for the play equipment. Thank you.
Well, what was
Does
the
he
question?
agree? Sorry. Does he agree that it's not fair that the government has a play strategy, and actually does he agree that it would be better to put funding into the parishes rather than have a play expert? Because we do have a lot of expertise in the island anyway.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, I do agree that this should be a joint initiative between parishes and government. That's the way it's going to work. And the Conatarb's own parish is a great example of how funding can be sourced by philanthropists or other funds that want to support play for children and young people. So I think it will be, you know, a number of funding streams that will come together to make this happen in the individual parishes, sir.
Supplemental question?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister agree that a good strategy must include a clear action plan, milestones, defined outcomes, and measures of success? And if they would be included in the coming strategy?
Thank you, sir. I think the Deputy has encapsulated exactly what a good strategy should contain, and that is part of our thinking, to have all of those things in it, because otherwise it's not a strategy, it's just a wish list. It has to be grounded in reality, and all those things that the Deputy describes make sure that it becomes manifest.
Very much. We next have question 6. The Deputy Stevenson will ask of the Minister for Housing. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Taking into account the role housing can play in Jersey's falling birth rate, will the Minister advise what plans, if any, he has to remove or amend Section 3.4 of the updated Assisted Purchase Pathway eligibility criteria, which states that the size of home a person wishes to purchase should reasonably reflect the needs of the household at the time of application? And if no such plans exist, then why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The short answer to that is that I am very open to amending that part of the criteria. The longer version of the answer, sir, is that I'm committed to adapting our first-time buyer policies, which is referenced in page 8 of the Investing in Jersey programme. During my tenure as Housing Minister, expanding eligibility for affordable housing has been something I have done and something I've said publicly that I want to go further on at the moment when the supply of homes enables it. So, sir, I'm hoping relatively soon to be able to publish an evaluation of the steps that I have already taken so far in this regard and give greater clarity on the next steps than I've been able to give so far.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. In the name of greater clarity, can the Minister confirm if being open to this review would be part of that piece of work then?
Absolutely, sir, most definitely. I would go a little further than that and say that there'll be quite a lot on the table as to what we can do to adapt our first-time buyer policies to make them more accessible. I've done things already during my tenure to make it easier for growing families to regain their first-time buyer status, to move up the ladder and smoothen those processes for them. I think that there's more that we could do to have some kind of interaction with downsizing too, to enable people who want to move into a smaller home, free up one for a growing family to move up into them as well. And there's lots of good things that we can do, so I'm just taking a bit of time at the moment to evaluate what the prospects are for enabling those various different things, including looking at the criterion that the Deputy has mentioned, and hopefully providing a bit more clarity in terms of timeline on when we feel we'll be in a decent position to be able to do that.
Deputy Dubé.
Thank you, sir. The Minister may have answered some of what I was going to ask. It's really interesting to hear about that review. My question was going to be focused on the first-time buyer criteria within this the scheme that the Deputy is questioning about. And could the Minister just give a little bit more detail about how that can be expanded, or indeed if it already is, by the sounds of the previous answer?
Thank you, sir. I mean, it's a comprehensive policy, and the point of it is to make sure that access to first-time buyer products and schemes is targeted as best as possible at those who need it, so that we enable home ownership. And we want to make sure that it's not so wide that anybody can get it, and therefore those who most need the help are going to be struggling and competing for that. So there will always be some kinds of limits on that. The initial question from Deputy Stevenson is referring to bedroom needs, where at the moment applications should be for a +1 need, which if you haven't started your family yet would mean you wouldn't be eligible for a 3-bedroom home, and that might be something that a family wants to do and able to plan to have children at some point. So as I said to in response to Deputy Stevenson's question, I am very open to looking at that. I just want to be careful that we don't offer any kind of false hope or end up widening things in a reckless manner that means people end up with their hopes and dreams not being met because there's so much demand at the wrong moment in time, etc. So I just want to be a bit careful about that kind of thing, about how we phase it in when we get to it.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister going to consult on this, and as part of that consultation, will he look at different types of families, including potentially blended families?
To be honest, no. I don't think that would be necessary, and I think it would actually probably prolong the exercise, and there's probably relatively quick wins we could establish without having some overbearing process that would slow me down in doing that. I have confidence that with an analysis of the supply of homes we have coming online in our affordable sector, that I could hopefully make positive steps in that direction without having to undergo that kind of process.
Final supplementary, Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. I think I'm right in saying that we've ended up in a situation in Jersey where all schemes have been tied up in the same criteria, and after the last Island Plan debate, we even brought in parish schemes under that same criteria. Does the Minister believe that going forward that's the right approach, to have the same criteria for everything, or might it be that there's flexibility in some could be available perhaps wider to certain types of people and some maybe not?
I don't completely agree with the Deputy. There are some differences in some of the schemes. First Step, for example, did have further limitations on it that Andium Home Buy doesn't have in terms of past ownership of property. Andium Home Buy does allow people to upsize, whereas First Step was not for that purpose. So there were differences in that. I don't disagree with the Deputy that for particular kinds of scheme that offer particular kinds of support, then yes, you could have variability in that. It wasn't appropriate for First Step to have some of the flexibility that Andium Home Buy has, because Home Buy was for homes that Andium was building, whereas First Step was for homes in the secondary market. So there was a rationale for that. And where there is a rationale for having differences, then of course I'd be absolutely open to that.
Well, we come to question 7. The Deputy Doublé will ask the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the allocation of project funding in the proposed budget Government Plan 2026 to 2029, will the Minister please provide an update on the delivery of the Sexual Assault Referral Centre in St Saviour?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. All planning and building control permissions are in place for the Sexual Assault Referral Centre. A procurement strategy has been agreed and formal tender documents have been prepared and are ready to issue. An expression of interest to local contractors will be issued in the next couple of weeks. Once the 2026 government plan is approved, we will be in a position to go out to tender. Allowing for the tender and approvals process to take place, it is anticipated that the works can start in February 2026.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for her answer. I note that in the draft budget, funding for the SARC has been increased by 1.7 million in line with revised costings. And could the Minister please outline what these additional costings are?
So the additional costings basically are in relation to inflation increases.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Given that the costs have risen, but extra money has now been proposed as part of the budget, have any efficiencies in the project been targeted as part of that process? Is the project being reduced or changed in any way in light of the extra costs?
So, as far as I'm aware, there is no changes in relation to the building.
Supplemental question. Final supplementary, Deputy Dubley. Well, we come to question 8. That Deputy Alex Curtis will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy.
Will the Minister provide an update on the implementation and delivery of the Impact Jersey Innovation Programme and outline any forthcoming initiatives to be delivered by the scheme?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Impact Jersey is a scheme run by Digital Jersey on behalf of the Government of Jersey. The fourth programme, to which the Deputy refers, is the Innovation Programme. Since its launch on 26th of June this year, the Innovation Programme has received over 40 inquiries. Of these, we are aware of 11 which are in the final stages of preparing their applications for the judging panel's review. Digital Jersey anticipates that at least 4 of these applications, totalling £800,000, will be ready for the next panel meeting in early October. They are unable to provide any information on the applications until that judging process has been completed, sir.
Supplemental question?
Yes, sir, but is it possible if the Minister could answer the second part of the question about forthcoming initiatives to be delivered by the Impact Jersey scheme?
Sir, I'm unable to provide information on that at the moment because I'm unaware of their forthcoming initiatives.
Yes, you can have a supplemental question if you wish.
Thank you, sir. The Minister highlighted the innovation programme as a fourth one. Has the Minister been in a position yet to evaluate with Digital Jersey the success of the first 3 programmes as they are currently either delivered or in delivery?
Sir, the first 3 programmes, which are the Open Programme 1, which Deputy Curtis is well aware of, the Customer Experience Technology and CareTech programmes have all taken place, and £2 million of grants for 13 projects have been confirmed under those first 3 schemes. The innovation programme itself is a continuous programme allowing applications that meet any of the 8 strategic priorities as agreed by the Assembly, but as we know, they will be determined later this year. So, sir, from that perspective, that's all I'm able to update on here, but it may be that I'm able to provide further information outside the Assembly.
So is it the case that the Impact Jersey programme is being slightly reduced by money being taken back from the programme to fund government initiatives through the budget process?
So I think the way I would put it, and I understand there'll be a wry smile, I would call it better management of the funds. And this started back in the previous government as well, when it was understood that by just putting £20 million into a fund and leaving it there, basically denies that parts of that £20 million being used elsewhere in government. So the intention has been to manage, knowing at the same time that neither Digital Jersey nor the Impact Fund scheme could move £20 million in 1 year. So the idea was that it would be better managed in that respect, which then doesn't allow money to be made available to other purposes for public spending.
Supplemental question.
Yes, sir. If I understood that answer correctly, it is simply a case of reprofiling the 20 million. Can the Minister confirm that the full sum will be eventually made available through the Impact Jersey programme?
It is my understanding that that's the case. I will check, as the Deputy is now making me doubt that. But I will certainly check. I understood, I'm picking up on some wording here. A revised spend profile of the £20 million was agreed in 2024, and a review in 2026 will assess the next phases of the programme and what transfers to the Technology Fund are needed for those future phases. So my understanding is it is still a £20 million fund that has been, as the Deputy said, reprofiled. I will double check though, because I don't want there to be any doubt.
Deputy Kovach.
Thank you, sir. So from the funding allocated so far to the Impact Jersey Innovation Programme, what measurable outcome or benefits have been achieved so far?
My understanding is that we're still too early to see the exact overall outcomes, but I know, for instance, we have had drone technology that was funded in the first programme being used in rescues at sea, and we have seen other technologies such as, I believe, sensors being used to determine, to help people understand the use of utilities in their apartments being used as well. So the actual assessment of each programme is ongoing, and because these programmes, all of them by their nature, are young, none of the assessments, I believe, are yet completed, but are continued to be ongoing.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes. What steps are being taken to ensure the long-term impact of projects, support their growth beyond their pilot stage, and maintain public accountability by sharing successes and lessons learned?
So I believe that's part of the ongoing nature of the fund, is to report on an annual basis and to maintain public understanding of its work through that reporting.
Final supplementary, Deputy Curtis. Very well, we come to question 9. Deputy Ward will ask of the Minister for Children and Families. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the recently published proposed budget 2026 to 2029, will the Minister explain why there has been a 57.55% increase in the allocation of funds for the North of St Helier Youth Centre from the previously approved 10.237 million to 16.129 million?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for this question. The 2025 to 27 government budget, as approved at the end of 2024, provided the initial estimated budget of approximately 10 million for the Ann Street Youth Centre capital build. I believe we were always clear that this was an early estimate, and I think we have been open that additional funds would be required as the project developed. The funding requested in the 2026 to 28 budget is the original estimated budget, with the additional revenue costs required to cover increased costs of construction across the industry. The YES project, which is to be located in adjacent premises, the old Belmont pub, together with staffing, utility costs and ongoing maintenance, cleaning and staff training costs, and everything is required to ensure that the centre, once open, can operate efficiently and effectively and comply with all health and safety regulations. To assure the Deputy, officers have been through a value engineering exercise and have reviewed the plans and made adaptations to the project as necessary. Indeed, they have removed some items from the project to reduce costs. The children and young people of St Helier and the island will be provided with a new youth centre that is built to the highest standards, that is fully functional, safe, and an inclusive space for all young people from all backgrounds. This is about building more than just a structure. It's about creating a foundation for personal growth, community engagement, and long-term social development. Indeed, over the decades, several decades, There has been no...
Minister, I'm afraid I must ask you to bring your answer to an end. You've
Sorry.
already gone 30 seconds after
Sorry.
the normal allocated
Thank you,
for a
sir.
ministerial answer. Very well. Supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. What reassurance can the Minister give to the Jersey taxpayer that they are getting value for money and that the final cost of building the youth centre will remain at the budgeted 16.129 million?
I'm confident with the value engineering that has been done and that we can remain within the budgeted figure. Due to, obviously, commercial constraints, I can't provide a breakdown of that figure, although I think it would be possible, perhaps, to provide the Deputy with something in writing which would remain confidential if he's happy with that. Thank you.
Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. The Minister will know that we've had a number of exchanges around the development of the Lyskay Youth Centre, and it's quite astonishing that £6 million can be found when we can't actually find 4.7 million for the development of Lyskay. Will the Minister please revisit this decision, and can he explain to the residents of St Clement, who have waited over 10 years to have their request for investment considered, what he will do to confirm and assure them that this is a commitment he will still deliver on and that we will not have any more broken promises over the next course of the budget.
That's perilously close to being outside the parameter of the question, but I will allow it.
Yes, I have to say I was about to comment on that, actually. That
no need, that's all right.
But you have done so, sir, so I'll be fairly brief. I would say that the children of St Helier have waited far longer than 10 years for a youth facility. My recollections as a teenager was of at least 4 youth centres in St Helier, all of which have closed. We are committed to Lyskay. I am, prepared to confirm that. However, I will not revisit the decision that the St Helier Youth Centre has to come first. In the scheme of things, we could, if we were to develop Lyskay prior to the St Helier Youth Centre, we could find ourselves in a situation where both the children of the St Clement's area and St Helier had no youth facility. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Supplemental question.
So I apologise if I've offended the Minister and the Assembly with that question. But one of the things that is very frustrating is that there is or have been promises about the development of the youth centre, and residents are talking to me about whether this will ever happen.
You do have to just ask a question. You're now explaining why you said what you said before. It would be helpful if you could just pose a supplementary question if you have one.
I can do so. Thank you. Will the Minister please give some detail as to what will be committed to in the budget around Lyskay Youth Centre?
Sir, I have to say this is a supplementary about a question that we originally were sceptical was relevant to the initial question. There will be, I believe there are monies in the budget for ongoing maintenance of the Lyskay Centre, but that there are not funds for the development, and I think we've made that clear, but that will be a future project. Thank you.
Well, I have Deputies Renouf, Curtis Moore, and then final supplementary. Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. In his original answer, the Minister referred to a long list of reasons why the costs had increased, which included things which to my ears sounded like running costs, maintenance and staffing and so on. Can he confirm that the capital cost estimates have gone up 50% within the last year?
I have, the increases, as I've already explained, are partly due to the incorporation of additional build, which is the Yes Centre, As I said before, due to commercial constraints, I'm not going to give a detailed breakdown of the figure in the budget. So I will leave it at that.
Supplementary?
Yes, so what confidence can the Assembly have in the Minister's assurances when he has just said that the costs have gone up 50% in a year, and earlier he said he didn't think they would go up any more? Why should we have any confidence that that assurance would be met?
I think I answered that earlier, actually, because they've done a value engineering exercise on the total project now. In the very, a year ago, we were looking at the very early days of the project and what might be incorporated, and we were looking at a youth centre. They've now done a value engineering exercise on the total project, and I have confidence in our officers and their ability to predict the costs, and that I see no reason at this point why we would exceed those.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. The Minister has cited commercial sensitivity. Could he confirm whether there is a agreed delivery partner, and if so, at what point the commercial sensitivity should lift?
Well, the commercial sensitivity would lift, of course, when the final negotiations are completed with that partner. And yes, there is a preferred partner. Hence the extensive value engineering exercise. But I can't give an exact date. However, as I said, I'm happy to share information with Deputy Waugh, who answered the question.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm whether the delivery model is at a single partner, is intended to deliver the entire 16 million capital, or whether the project is to be delivered in part by department and other delivery partners, hence the need for commercial sensitivity, which I think many of us are trying to get to the bottom of.
Thank you, sir. I can confirm there's a single delivery partner, and that is really as much as I can confirm at this point.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. In 2024, there was £3.5 million budget allocated for the Lyskay Youth Club, which has now been withdrawn by the Minister. Could the Minister confirm whether that money has been transferred to the St Helier project, or what has happened to it?
Minister.
Well, like many things in previous budgets, new projects come along. The St Helier, in the scheme of things, there was money originally allocated for the St Helier Youth Centre, which then went on to be used for other items. So in effect, there was 3.5 million. That has. It's difficult to say whether it's actually been transferred to this project, because as with everything, budgets move, funds get reallocated, just as what happened to the original funds for the St Helier Youth Centre.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm a bit stuck as there's so many questions to ask out after that non-answer, really. As we approach the forthcoming budget debate in December, what assurance can the Minister give that he and his fellow ministers will be held to account for delivery in the items that are agreed in that budget, given his previous answers? And I would also like to remind the Constable that it is part of his duty as a minister to come to the Assembly fully briefed and on top of his brief.
Oh, I really don't think I need reminding of that, but there we are. So I've given assurances about this project, and I will, in that we have done an extensive value engineering exercise. I'm confident of the figures that have now been produced. and my answer can only relate to the original question, which was about this specific item in the budget. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. And I guess it's the obvious one, isn't it? Can the Minister confirm that a price has been agreed to purchase the old Ann Street building?
I think that's still. I think that's still part of the that commercially sensitive information. But I'm happy to share that. As I've said to the deputy, I'm happy to share that with him in a confidential written reply. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, was that question answered? I had said, has it been agreed?
Well, it was answered with, it's not going to be answered because it's part of the commercially sensitive information. That's, I mean, how the Assembly views an answer or not is a matter, of course, for the Assembly, but it has been answered. Very well. We come to question 10. The Deputy Collins will ask the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to his recent speech to the Chamber of Commerce, will the Minister outline his priorities in relation to the new planning approach, which will see economic impact being taken as a key consideration in the determining of future planning applications?
Thank you,
yes,
sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm really pleased to have been working with my colleague, the Planning Minister, on this joint approach, which is to ensure that in both the short and long term, greater economic consideration is given to planning decisions. In working with my fellow ministers, I'm pleased that my department are also aligned with planners to improve advice for decision makers. This is a staged approach, ensuring economic weight is given to applications, whilst also assessing processes to improve outcomes for businesses and eventually ensuring that the next island plan becomes a framework that better supports future sustainable economic growth. There's no doubt that this is a joint effort, with success being dependent on the quality of inputs, the clarity of process, and the strength of shared understanding. The focus is on the quality of evidence provided by applicants, the formal economic input from the Department of the Economy, and the understanding of economic factors and outcomes by planners when factors are being balanced and decisions being made. And so the most obvious, kind of most visible example of this work is in the online planning hub, which has recently been launched.
Supplementary question?
Yes, sir. I didn't necessarily hear a key priority for the Minister there. One of the challenges we face on the Planning Committee is evaluating the proof of redundancy that is made for a change of use or a removal of employment land. Can he confirm that his department or the Jersey business will be well informed to be able to make decisions based on maintaining things like light industry?
Sir, it's really important. My department isn't involved in decision making. My department is involved in providing advice that then the planning department and the planning committee and ultimately the planning minister are able to take into account when making their adjudications. The joint approach, sir, though, has three main areas: the input and impacts, focusing on immediate actions and responses, and ensuring that economic factors are given material weight in the planning process. Processes themselves, addressing the systems and mechanisms that support consistent, informed decision making. And I think that's where the matters that the Deputy refers to would fit in. And strategy, a forward-looking, shaping the long-term vision and embedding economic thinking into planning policy and practice. And so, sir, from that perspective, it would be information that the Planning Committee would be provided with by the Economic Department, would be used by the Planning Committee in their considerations. And with regard to the matters that the Deputy refers to directly, I'm not sure that the Economy Department itself would necessarily, though it could, talk about whether sufficient advertising and publicity had been given to a particular property with regard to its planning application. That's something that we absolutely can look at, but I know it's something that is difficult to determine. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Minister. Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. Does the Minister accept that the Bridging Island Plan includes multiple references to the need to consider economic impact in it, and therefore can he identify exactly what is lacking in the process at the moment that has gone wrong, given that that mechanism is already very strongly embedded in the island plan?
So I must disagree with the Deputy in that I don't believe that economic consideration is sufficiently embedded within the Bridging Island plan. And I do note that the Bridging Island plan itself made no new sites available for economic use. And certainly from the perspective of policy, whilst there are policy matters which talk about economic consideration, I think there has been a job of work to be done, which we have done with the Planning Minister and his team, to help planning officers understand the nature and meaning of economic consideration. So.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, sir. Given that answer in particular, does the Minister accept that there is a risk that this might be seen as an attempt not to add balance, but to make economic factors trump environmental factors within the system? And what will he do to ensure that that is not the case?
So I think the planning law, the Bridging Island plan, make very clear the many considerations they take into account. I do accept that with any piece of work where you're trying to bring something up the agenda, which is effectively what this is, you know, in theory you can go too far. It could be seen that economic matters are being taken too much into consideration. That's part of the political balance, sir. That's one reason why we have the planning committee. My department is working to help provide advice and understanding. It is not working to make decisions. It does in itself not make decisions. That is down to the planning officers, the planning committee and the planning minister. They take the advice provided and it is up to them how they interpret it. But obviously the balance of consideration is always that it is political and it is in the minds of the people making those decisions on the day, sir. But I personally at the moment am not concerned about it being overly taken into account because, sir, at the moment economic matters are barely taken into account in planning considerations.
Final supplementary, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Does the minister, would the minister like to see either the Economic Department, the Department of the Economy, or Jersey Business become a statutory consultee, so when matters of economy are required, they are taken firmly into consideration?
I must admit that is something I think should take place. I do believe the economic impact of almost any site. It could be residential housing all the way through to, you know, a new laboratory or something. The economic impact of those matters is important and I believe should be taken into account, and therefore I can see there is a strong case for making, as the Deputy said, either Jersey Business or the Economy Department a statutory consultee. Thank you, sir.
Well, we come to question 11. Deputy Talley will ask the Chair of the State's Employment Board. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the recent ruling of the Employment and Discrimination Tribunal regarding the dismissal of a member of staff from Revenue Jersey, will the Chair confirm why the State's Employment Board has sought to appeal this ruling? Does he consider it a good use of public resources?
Yes, Chair.
Sir, with the consent of Deputy Taddia, the Vice Chair will take the question.
Very well, Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Deputy for the question. As this matter relates to a private individual and still a live appeal process, it would not be appropriate or fair to share specific details. I can confirm, however, that the decision is being appealed on procedural issues. New allegations were raised after the State's Employment Board had filed evidence and written arguments, and there was subsequently no opportunity to address the points that were raised. The points are being challenged in order to avoid setting a precedent in employment matters and to ensure that the interpretation and application of the legislation is clearly understood by both employers and employees. There are wider implications of this case, and this is why it is considered to be an appropriate use of public resources to proceed with an appeal. Sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
So, of course, this ruling is in the public domain, and I do have the permission also of the constituent of mine to speak and ask this question. Does the Minister accept that actually what we're talking about here is that he doesn't accept the ruling of the Employment Tribunal? The State's Employment Board did put it to them that the condition that they were saying for stress being considered, and in fact the mental impairment here, which they upheld in the case of my constituent, meant that the SEB's position was rejected. And does the Vice Chair of the Tribunal not accept simply, does he not agree that this is a case of the government not accepting a very clear finding of the Tribunal, and it's going to result in increased trauma and anguish for my constituent and her husband to go through what's already been months of suffering simply because they cannot accept a ruling of a body that he's voted on himself?
Thank you, sir. I think first and foremost, our intention is not to cause any further distress to the ex-employee. But there are two issues here. Firstly, there is procedural unfairness, and secondly, there is setting a precedent. I think employers need to fundamentally have a good understanding of how they manage sickness absence. And the definition of disability, it's very unusual for stress to be considered as a disability, and that is what we are appealing against. Also, an occupational health doctor did not class stress as a disability and considered that the employer had put everything in place to make sure that the employee was properly supported. There's also a case of procedural unfairness where the tribunal found against the employer because they said it was disproportionate not to have offered the employee an alternative role elsewhere in government. This was a new allegation after the raising and filing of our evidence and written arguments, and the tribunal did not give us the opportunity to rebut this, which we consider to be procedurally unfair. So.
Yes, sir. Can the Minister therefore confirm that the issue at stake is point 166 in the ruling by the tribunal, which says that while stress may not amount to a mental impairment in every case, the tribunal has found that based on the symptoms of the claimant's stress, in this case it did. In other words, is the reason why this is being appealed because the government does not accept that ruling?
That's correct, sir.
Can I also therefore clarify with the Vice Chair, has he been subject to any lobbying by business groups to try and clarify this process on the government's behalf, so that the government will clarify this from the point of view of businesses?
I've not been approached by any lobby groups or any individuals in relation to this case, sir.
Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Tony.
Yeah, I found it curious at a business breakfast the other day that the business community were talking about stress being a new factor, and the penny didn't drop that it was related to this case until now. Does the Minister accept that actually he has misrepresented the position of the tribunal, because the tribunal did say that stress on its own doesn't constitute necessarily grounds for discrimination or indeed a protected characteristic. But in this case, the claimant had been proven to have a mental impairment, and that actually there were also wider considerations of anxiety, panic attacks, low mood, difficulty sleeping, that all played into this fact. And that simply the SEB did have sufficient opportunity to rebut those cases, and that actually there is nothing procedural here, but that the SEB is coming under pressure from the business community and possibly from its own HR processes, that they simply don't agree with the findings of an impartial tribunal that we have appointed as a state's body, sir. And if that's the case, should it not be that the SEB should be seeking to bring an amendment to the law as to what can constitute a characteristic under discrimination?
I mean, not only was it an extremely long question, but we are...
Thank you, sir, but others have been indulged this morning. Sir.
Yes, perhaps I have been overly indulgent, this is true, but also it's beginning worryingly to drill into the details of a case which is in effect for the court sub judice. And I think it would be helpful in any answer, given it's too late to call back some of the information that is for, in any answer if you would be as succinct as you're able to be.
Thank you, sir. I maintain the position of procedural unfairness and setting a precedent, and that is why we are appealing this decision, sir.
Come now to question 12. The Deputy Renniff will ask of the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Will the Minister advise what work was undertaken prior to the publication of the proposed budget, Government Plan 2026 to 2029, to ensure that the government grant to the Social Security Fund could be reduced without damaging the ability of the fund to meet its future commitments, and explain why, given the scale of the reduction, the next actuarial review was not brought forward to inform the budget decision?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The proposed budget includes a temporary reduction in the state's grant to the Social Security Fund until 2029. Detailed estimates were prepared by Treasury and considered at length by Council of Ministers prior to the publication of the budget. The estimates, which appear on page 91 of the budget document, show that the temporary reduction will not damage the ability of the fund to meet its future commitments. The Social Security Reserve Fund balance is expected to increase to £2.5 billion at the end of 2025 and to £3 billion at the end of 2029. The periodic actuarial review of the fund is a detailed and time-consuming piece of work designed to support longer-term policy decisions. The reviews are scheduled to give each government the most up-to-date information possible on long-term trends, and it would not be appropriate to move this timetable due to a proposal for a temporary reduction which does not have a long-term impact on the fund.
Supplemental?
Yes, very much so. The budget proposes temporarily reducing contributions by £250 million over 4 years, after which government contributions will revert. However, the spending, which the withheld contributions are funding, is ongoing expenditure in health, education and childcare. How can the future viability of the fund survive when exactly the same pressures as are present now will be present in 4 years' time?
Minister.
So the pressures may be similar or the same, but the solution may well be different. But as discussed in my quarterly scrutiny hearing last week, officers and the actuary are going to review options for the Social Security Fund to help the next government develop a long-term strategy for it, given the demographic changes taking place and wider pressures on government finances. This will be ready by July 2026 so that it is available for full consideration for future budgets.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. It's interesting. Thank you for the Minister about temporary measures, but why the one-off 50 million, another temporary measure, reduction to the state's grant to the Social Security Fund for 2025 was requested in this budget retrospectively, and what assessment has been made?
Again, this is a one-off reduction and isn't considered to damage the ability of the fund to meet its future requirements. In considering matters to do with the budget, there was robust discussion around the table of Council of Ministers, and I am not a quiet member of that council. So I did give good challenge, I believe, to the Treasury to give myself assurance that the temporary change being made would not affect the future long-term ability of the fund to meet its requirements. We have to remember that the grant going into the fund is taxpayers' money, and it was more appropriate, in my view, that taxpayers' money was used to fund the things that we have chosen to fund, rather than it go into an overperforming fund.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Absolutely. We have another one-off. Now we are having 5 years reduction from the grant. Would the Minister consider that actually this is major policy decision on reducing state's grant for 5 years would benefit from the actual review that's scheduled for 25 to inform 26 to conduct this review now and to present to the members of the Assembly the health of the fund before making major decision to the reduction of 5 years going forward?
So the health of the fund and the estimates for the next 4 years are indeed in the government plan document and available for all members to see. I must remind members that changing the amount of money going into the grant is subject to a proposition which I will bring to this Assembly, and that is for a one-off change and not an ongoing change beyond the time of this particular government plan.
Final supplementary, Deputy Wren.
Yes, sir. The spending in the budget is long-term, but the funding mechanism is time-limited. What does it say about Jersey's reputation for fiscal prudence that we are committing to long-term expenditure without any idea of how we will meet that commitment and simply dumping the problem into the next government's lap?
Minister.
So we have very immediate needs in areas such as residential childcare which need funding. In my view, I think taxpayers want us to meet the needs of our community, and when looking at where to meet those needs in this short term, the Social Security Fund appeared to be, or not the Social Security Fund, reducing the grant to the Social Security Fund appeared to meet the needs of our community in a much better way than not reducing it. As I have said in my previous answers, we have requested additional advice from the actuaries which will be available to inform future government and long-term decision-making.
Point of order, sir. The question was, what does it say about Jersey's reputation for fiscal prudence that we are committing to long-term expenditure without any idea of how we'll meet that? The Minister answered the question why it's a jolly good idea to divert the funds, not the question of what it does to our reputation for fiscal prudence.
Well, I think that's probably a fair point, Minister. So if you'd like to answer that particular question, there's time to do so.
So I think using taxpayers' money in the way that we have proposed is the most fiscally prudent thing to do at this point in time.
Very well. Come to question 13 that the Constable of St Saviour will ask the Minister for External Relations. Constable.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise the potential implications for islanders of the European Union entry and exit system, which is due to begin a rolling implementation across European countries from the 10th of October 2025?
Minister.
Sorry. Sir, I'm answering in Deputy Gore's absence.
Yes.
Sorry.
Assume
Thank you.
that must be the case, yes.
Yes, sir. So I thank the Constable for his question. When British national travellers use the new system for the first time, they will be required to register in the EU's Entry and Exit System, or EES. This will require facial images and fingerprints to be supplied at the border. EU entry points are expected to phase in gradually the registration process over some 6 months to avoid lengthy delays. EES registration will be valid for 3 years. Information for the public is published on Government of Jersey and UK government websites. Ultimately, implementation of the EES is a matter for the European Union and its member states and is subject to ongoing EU legislative processes. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question.
Sir, thank you. This will also apparently include children under 12 who will not be required to have their fingerprints scanned, but will still need their faces scanned. My question, sir, is, will Jersey be providing EES terminals at the harbour and airport in the not-too-distant future?
Sir, I don't know the answer to that question. I had assumed that the terminals would be at the point of entry in the EU and not in Jersey. I'm sorry, sir, I don't know the answer to that.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you. Given the introduction next month of the European Union entry and exit system for all new non-EU nationals, the upcoming European Travel Information and Authorization System, ETIAS, next year for non-EU travellers, and the existing UK electronic travel authorization and its adaptation to the Jersey ETA scheme, What steps will the Minister take to ensure Jersey residents of all nationalities receive clear, accessible and proactive guidance on which authorizations or registrations will be required for their travel to avoid confusion between these systems?
Sir, as I say, information will be published on the government website, and it will also be the Government of Jersey website, and it will also be available on UK government websites. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, College.
But given all this confusion of all these systems coming all at once, would that be proactively published on social medias and engage with the public to be aware of it?
Sir, I'm sure there will be a full communications plan in due course to the extent it affects Jersey residents. There will be people in Jersey who have EU passports for whom it's really not an issue. I think but we are talking about British and Jersey travellers, and we will have information for those people. I don't think it's very much difficult from using I assume it's not going to be too much difficult from using the entry gates when you come in, the electronic gates at Heathrow or Gatwick, for example, when you come in from international destinations. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's been fingerprinted going into other jurisdictions. So I think lots of people will be familiar with that by now. Thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Conor Thompson, second.
Thank you, sir. How I lament travelling over to Cartrip for a day trip on a friend's boat for lunch, needing nothing more than a friendly wave from the harbour master. Big Brother has arrived, sir, I'm afraid. George Orwell was right.
Yes, is that a question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will also, in not too distant future, a year's time, need an ETIAS, which is also a visa requirement. Is the Minister aware of this? And again, will facility be put in place? And the question being, has the Minister been informed when Jersey will be required to start the ETIAS scheme?
Sir, I'm afraid I have no information about any visa scheme. The question was just about the EES, and that's all the background I have at this stage. Thank you, sir.
Well, we come to question 14. The Deputy Gardener will ask of the Minister for Housing.
Thank you. Further to his answer to written question 334/2025, will the Minister provide details on what plans, if any, he has to ensure that the 56 families with children in Band 1 of the housing gateway are not left waiting indefinitely to secure housing, and will he commit to establish measurable targets for reducing waiting times on the gateway?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The 56 families in Band 1 on the gateway will not be left waiting indefinitely for secure housing. So most of those 56 are already in social housing, so while their housing may not be appropriate or adequate, it can at least be secure. A third of them are looking to downsize. 70% of them have had an offer made to them at some point, but for whatever reason hasn't been able to be accepted. And so 20% of those are families who have specific needs, which of course will take longer to be able to assist them with. But any family that is in insecure housing situation should be receiving support from the Housing Advice Service to help them establish a pathway to a permanent home. So in respect of the general suggestion of targets on waiting times, the tangible measures that we are taking now will be reducing waiting times. So that comes in the investment that there has been in the last 5 years in the Housing Advice Service, which works directly with people to help them into permanent homes. Andiam has recently scrapped the choice-based letting system, which enables them a greater discretion to be able to find appropriate homes to directly offer those who are waiting for them and who need them. And so, of course, all of this happens in the backdrop of the much greater supply of family-sized homes that has been a great focus for me during my tenure. And I can say that since Le Grand Douai opened on the former Mayfair site, that everybody on Band 1 of the gateway, except for those with specific needs for whom that site wouldn't be appropriate for, has been made an offer of housing. So I take the political view that I would prefer to use the limited resources I have to enact tangible policies which we know will have an impact, rather than to divert those to create new bureaucratic processes.
Well, supplemental question.
Absolutely. While the new developments are in pipeline, which is really welcome, and I understand that Minister recognized that many families cannot wait for years. What interim measures, or can the Minister confirm that the children will not continue to grow in the hotels? We currently have 15 families in the hotels with children. Are they continue to stay there, and for how long?
Well, sir, since that question answer was published, it's now 11 that are being housed in hotels. But I should say to the Deputy that they are not put in hotels because of a shortage of social housing or because of any kind of long-term difficulty in finding those homes. Those are only ever used for dynamic situations where it's a very temporary stopgap because of something that has happened. That might be a discharge from hospital, that might be an immediate case of homelessness where a set of keys for a new social rental home can't be immediately found on the spot but may take a few days. So that is always a very dynamic situation and not a long-term situation to mask some kind of shortage in social housing.
Deputy Dewey.
Thank you, sir. I note from the answer to the written question referred to in this question that 37 of those 56 families were single-parent households. Can the Minister respond to how those families are being prioritised, given that single-parent families face disproportionate impacts in other areas?
Well, sir, every household situation will be unique, and I can't speak to every single one of those cases that the Deputy has raised. I can refer back to the figures that I gave previously, which is that some of those will likely be those who are looking to downsize, in which case their housing is secure for the time being. It would just be more appropriate for them to be living elsewhere, and then that frees up a chain for another family to move up, who may well be one of the other 56 on there. And with the opening of the Le Grand Douai site, many of those will have received offers recently. But as I said, as every household situation is unique, I would perhaps need to give a bit more thought if there are any of those cases that are requiring extra support. But we do now have a housing advice service that didn't exist 5 years ago that is in a much better position to offer that support than we were in a place previously.
Supplemental question, Deputy Dewey.
Thank you, sir. If the central issue is one of supply, would the Minister consider asking Andium to look at purchasing some of the many properties that are currently on the open market to help deal with the supply issue?
So I think that's a very good idea. We have actually done this recently, where working closely with the Social Security Minister, we were able to work with Andium to enable them to purchase homes on the open market to help meet a specific need in housing that they were not able to meet within the rest of their stock, because we need a diversity of kind of homes, not just, not a block of flats isn't appropriate for every single household makeup. So we have some precedent very recently of doing that, and I'm absolutely open-minded to doing more of that, definitely. We just need to work out a scheme and work out funding to make it happen.
Final supplementary, Deputy Calder.
Thank you, sir. And they followed the second part of the answer. Does the Minister accept that without clear waiting time targets, islanders cannot hold government to account on progress? And I understand that it's complex, but would the Minister consider to at least publish indicative benchmarks to show how the progress is made?
So I can consider that, and I am at the moment looking at whether the updates that we provide on gateway statistics could be made richer and provide a more detail in the picture of how things are. That's something I can do. But so I do reiterate the point I made previously, that I am the kind of politician who prefers to focus on tangible actions that we know will make a difference, and that it is always going to be the case that when you provide blanket statistics that cover lots of very unique situations, you won't necessarily get a great picture of what is actually happening, and that can end up being diversionary. So I prefer the strategy that I have at this moment.
Well, we come to question 15. The Deputy Dewey will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, Sir. Will the Minister detail the progress being made in implementing the voluntary pay gap reporting framework and advise whether this is proving to be effective in tackling them, including those relating to gender, ethnicity, disability and any other such pay gaps identified?
Thank you, Sir. I understand Deputy Earls is taking the question. Thank you.
Very well, yes.
Thank you, Sir, and I thank the Deputy for allowing me to answer this question. The Government remains committed in its efforts to encourage and make it as easy as possible for the private sector to report voluntary on their gender pay gap, and that includes making available a voluntary pay gap reporting framework. To achieve this, the Government has continued to work closely with the Institute of Directors and Mind the Gap Jersey. Jointly, a structure for guidance and a toolkit has been agreed upon, and this structure complements the reporting systems already in place by Government and Statistics Jersey. The agreed structure has formed the basis of Mind the Gap instructions given to their Scottish counterparts, and they are currently in the process of writing the guidance and framework for Jersey, and it's anticipated it will be completed by the end of October. Once reviewed, the Government and the IOD and Mind the Gap will review it and work jointly on promoting and encouraging businesses to report their pay gap, as well as providing narratives and action plans each year. The scope of this work has focused solely on the gender pay gap and has not addressed areas of ethnicity or disability. Thank you.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, Sir, and I thank the Assistant Minister for her answer, and it's really good to hear that the progress is being made on this to encourage businesses to use this template. And when the template is ready, hopefully there'll be some comms from Government to promote it, if the Minister could confirm that, and also where can those companies send their pay gap reports to? Will there be like a central email address or somewhere where that can be collected by Government?
Thank you, Sir. So, yeah, I can absolutely confirm that there will definitely be some comms going out about that, and I'm happy to confirm that. The data has historically been published within annual reports of each organisation. I know that's not always easy to sift through, so I'm happy to maybe find a solution to try and centralise that. And maybe make some space on the Gov website in order to publish that. Thank you.
Very well, Deputy Kovac.
Thank you. What additional support or incentives is the government providing to encourage more organisations to participate in the voluntary reporting framework?
Thank you, Sir. Well, we hope that by having the IOD on board and the Mind the Gap group, that this will provide a way to help encourage other companies to do this. We've also know that we have some specific organisations that already report on their gender pay gap, like our arm length bodies. So, for example, we've got and shareholders, so Andium Homes, Jersey Post, Jersey Telecoms, Ports of Jersey, and the States of Jersey Development Company. I'd like to think that good companies will see this as an opportunity for good publicity, and that hopefully that will encourage others to follow suit. But we're always open-minded and welcome to hearing any suggestions in order to help.
Supplemental question.
Yes. Is there a plan to review or expand the framework to include other types of pay gaps, such as those based on age or caring responsibility, and if so, on what timeline?
Thank you, Sir. That's not something that's currently being looked at. The Chief Minister made a commitment to the gender pay gap, but I think that is an area that should be looked at probably in the next political term. I will say that Social Security are in the early stages of some engagement with the private sector in relation to potential unemployment of various groups, including those with disabilities, but that work is very much in the early stage at the moment. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Dublin.
Thank you, Sir. What I would like to ask is there going to be a tipping point whereby if this voluntary reporting doesn't actually result in companies voluntarily reporting, what is the tipping point of say the percentage of companies over a certain size that the Minister believes should be voluntarily reporting, and if they don't, that we would need legislation?
I think we just have to sort of wait and see what happens. I mean, obviously, we've only got sort of 9 months, is it, left of this political term? And I suspect that the new Assembly and new government will probably be looking at this and hopefully revise it. Obviously, we have been discouraging against legislating for it because of the cost associated with that, and also the added burden that puts onto businesses, which was part of the common strategic policy. One of the things in that was about reducing as much bureaucracy to businesses as possible. But I take on board the Deputy's comments, and I hope that maybe the next government will be able to provide some tipping point, but we will just have to wait and see for now. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 16. The Deputy Alex Curtis will ask the Minister for External Relations. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. And I understand the Assistant Minister will be answering in lieu of the Minister. Further to the Minister's commitment during questions without notice on the 8th of July 2025 to developing a communications plan on the work streams for sharing data with credit reference agencies, will he advise what actions, if any, have been taken to progress this and provide a current timeline for the plan's publication?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. Sir, an update on the credit reference agency work stream, which was promised by the Minister for External Relations during questions without notice on the 8th of July, has now been approved by the Minister and is due to be published on the Government's website either later today or tomorrow. Thank you.
Supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. Can the Assistant Minister confirm whether this is a web page in which her department and the Minister's department will be able to update with progress as and when it happens, so that members of the public don't need to go to the States members for updates and they can access the website and find information as and when it becomes available?
Sir, I would assume so, yes. Thank you.
Dr. Renouf.
Yes, sir. Would it be fair for the Assembly to conclude that the asking of this question prompted the speedy publication of that?
No, sir, I think there have been some technical issues with progressing this piece of work. Those issues are being addressed, technical and legal issues. Those are being addressed in parallel, and work is continuing at pace. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary? No. Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Could the Assistant Minister confirm that her officers will share with me and actually States members, who I'm sure will be very interested, the link to the webpage as soon as it is live, so they can share with their constituents?
Yes, sir, I will ask the team to share that link with States members.
Well, we come to question 17. The Deputy War will ask of the Minister for the Environment. Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what measures, if any, will be recommended to individuals who have undertaken PFAS tests, related medical assessments, resulting in intervention with medication or therapeutic, pardon my pronunciation here, phlebotomy, to assist in minimising the possibility of ongoing exposure to PFAS?
Thank you, sir. So, as a result of Report 3 from the Independent PFAS Scientific Advisory Panel, individuals who are eligible for the PFAS clinical review are currently receiving, as the Minister, Deputy would think, individual and personalised advice from a doctor at the PFAS clinical service about the intervention and its effects. Report 4 from the panel is considering PFAS exposure across the whole island, including environmental factors such as mains water supply, private water supply, food sources, soil, biosolids and other environmental factors. The specific recommendations from that report to reduce the amount of PFAS in the body will follow. That report will cover all islanders, and the report will not specifically target medically assessed islanders who will be under their own clinical supervision from the PFAS doctor. But I'm sure Report 4 will have a great input for those doctors and provide them with more information as they treat these patients.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, and thank the Minister for his answer. I've got a report here, which is the Jersey Community Blood Test results for 2024, showed that 60% of islanders tested have a level that would warrant treatment according to the level the panel have deemed needing treatment. That 60% is also not on borehole water. So what does the Minister recommend these people should do?
People should, if they are worried about PFAS, contact the department. People who are under clinical review will follow the doctor's clinical advice, but I take the Deputy's point on board. I think in the first instance, these people who have evidence of high PFAS levels need to speak to officers in my department and the health department, the public health department, about how they move forward. Certainly, we are continuing to prioritise people with blood tests where they are required.
We come to question 18 that Deputy Renniff will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the decision by the UK Government on 21st September 2025 to formally recognise the Palestinian state, will the Chief Minister advise whether the Government of Jersey supports this decision and the comments made by the UK Prime Minister in condemning the attacks by Hamas and the actions by Israel in Gaza and the call to lift unacceptable restrictions on aid?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. As members will be aware, under the terms of Jersey's constitutional relationship, matters of foreign affairs are aligned with those of the United Kingdom. That said, the people of Jersey, like so many around the world, have been deeply affected by the continuing conflict in the Middle East and by the suffering it has caused. The Government of Jersey recognises and respects the United Kingdom's recent decision to recognise the state of Palestine, alongside its clear condemnation of the terrorist attacks by Hamas, its criticism of the actions of the Israeli government in Gaza, and its call to lift the unacceptable restrictions on aid. The UK, as members will know, has formally recognised Palestine, in order to protect the viability of a two-state solution and create a path towards a lasting peace for the Israeli and Palestinian people, and that is the position this government supports. Thank you.
Supplemental question.
Can I take it from that answer, sir, that the Chief Minister will reinforce that the creation of a Palestinian state remains a key part of a long-term peace in the Middle East, noting that it is also included as an aspiration in the plans announced yesterday overnight?
So I think my original answer was clear. It comes on the back of a recent letter I sent to the Foreign Secretary. So, we note the emergence of a peace plan. We're not aware of the detail yet, sir, but as I said, our position under our constitutional position is to remain aligned with the UK government.
We come now to question 19. The Deputy Wilson will ask the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what targeted support, if any, is available to stabilise the construction and retail sectors, and what plans, if any, he has for improving business confidence in these areas?
Thank you, sir. Sir, I think the short answer is there is no money which is purely allocated to the construction and retail sectors. The Better Business Support Package, though, includes £5.3 million in productivity and skills grants for this year and next year, which are all available to the construction and retail sectors and are obviously available via Jersey Business. At the end of June, there were 58 approved grants. Of these, 40% had been awarded to employers in the construction sector and 4% to retail businesses. 2025 grant funding is still available, and so I'd encourage all employers in all sectors, including those in construction and retail, to make the most of the opportunity to invest in their people and processes, supported by funding from government. And of course, that government support is available up to £75,000 per project on a match-funded basis.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. The Minister will be aware that the Economic Regulator has concluded their year-long investigation into the construction industry. and that was prompted by concerns about the number of construction firms that have actually folded. Can he explain how his department is working with the Construction Council and the regulator to ensure that there is fair competition and market stability and long-term resilience in the market?
So we will continue as a department to engage both with the regulator and with the industry, and as the Deputy suggested, our principal means of engaging with the construction sector is via the Construction Council. But we'll also work with fellow ministers and their departments, and I know the Minister for Infrastructure is engaging with the Construction Council around the ICE programme, which is about showing that list and that pipeline of work that's available to the construction sector, because I think that is also, as aside from financial support, I think that pipeline of work from government is extremely important in helping the construction sector maintain its stability.
Well, we come to final question 20 that Deputy Coles will ask of the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Further to the report of the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry stated that Israel has committed genocide against the people of Palestine and Gaza, will the Chief Minister advise what action, if any, he intends to take to communicate Jersey's condemnation of Israel's actions?
Thank you, sir. I refer members to my previous answer, but I know many islanders expect us to speak with moral clarity on this issue, and I share the grave concern at the findings of the United Nations report and the scale of human suffering in Gaza. In July, I wrote to the Foreign Secretary to express Jersey's grave concern at the scale of civilian suffering in Gaza. In that letter, I highlighted the devastating loss of life and the destruction of essential infrastructure, which has compounded the humanitarian crisis. I made clear that while Jersey recognises the complexity of the situation, there can be no justification for the disproportionate harm being inflicted upon civilians. I also drew attention to reports raising serious concerns that aspects of Israel's actions may be in breach of international obligations, and emphasised the need for unrestricted humanitarian access, protection of civilians, and urgent progress towards peace. The letter, sir, was intended to ensure that Jersey's concern was communicated clearly to the United Kingdom government, which holds responsibility for foreign affairs, while reflecting our island's commitment to humanitarian principles and international law, sir. We will continue to monitor the developments in Gaza closely. We welcome the peace initiative that's appeared overnight, sir, and will not hesitate to make further representations to the United Kingdom government where we feel it necessary to do so. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister go as far as to accept the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry's report and acknowledge the fact that a genocide has in fact taken place in Gaza?
Thank you, sir. Well, the United Nations report didn't specify that exactly. It specified that there were reasonable grounds for genocide, where 4 of the 5 criteria had been met in their opinion. And that is the current situation with the report, sir. So I think I can pass no further comment at this stage, sir, but I hope the Deputy and the Assembly accept the sentiments of my previous answer.
Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. Has the Chief Minister responded to calls for a statement of condemnation in regard to the Gaza Freedom Flotilla that was attacked in the Mediterranean, which is trying to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza? Thank you, sir.
As other members, sir, I have received a number of emails from unknown parties, sir, in relation to that issue, and that is something we are seeking further information on, but I haven't received, so I've received direct calls via email, but we haven't made a decision on how we're going to respond to that just yet, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy IA.
Yes, sir. Will the Chief Minister be responding on behalf of all members? Thank you, sir.
Well, sir, I think my role is to respond on behalf of the government initially, but that's something I would certainly keep all members informed about.
Final supplementary, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. As developments continue in the Middle East, will the Chief Minister support sanctions brought against anybody who is guilty of war crimes?
Again, sir, we align ourselves with the UK on sanctions and will support sanctions as is our policy, any sanctions that the UK brings. We have no plans to operate sanctions outside of the UK's policy and strategy on that at present, sir.
Very well. That ends questions with notice. We now move on to questions without notice. The first period of questions is for the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. Given his previous commitments around consultation, is the Minister satisfied with the community and parish engagement around the tender process for the future use of the pavilion at Le Creux?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. Simply answer is no, I'm not, sir. I asked for people to be consulted in June, and I understand they weren't contacted until September, so clearly that's not acceptable. I was pleased that representatives of St Bullard's were briefed in September, but I'm really disappointed with the delay. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, thank you, sir. And I thank the Minister for his honesty. Could the Minister advise when the community are likely to see some benefit at Le Creux?
I hope to, thank you, sir. I hope to get an update on discussions this Thursday, sir, when I have a ministerial meeting subject to us being finished in this Assembly, sir. And I will update the parish officials once I've had that meeting. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Follow the public meeting with the Victoria Marine Lake Steering Group on the 4th of September, which Minister committed to find a way to ensure safety of the Victoria Marine Lake and be able to use by the community. Would the Minister give an update of developments since then?
Thank you, sir. And clearly, sir, the Marine Lake has deteriorated further from when I answered questions in this Assembly several months ago. So our priority with all of our property is to ensure safety first, sir. And so the team are working on that, sir, on finding a way to make the Marine Lake safe. That is where we're focused at the moment. And we're also happy to discuss with potential operators, sir, for next summer. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
When the Minister will be in the position to give an indication when it will be repaired?
So I think the repairs will take place in stages, sir. Clearly the areas which are higher risk will be done first, sir, and I hope work will start as soon as practically possible. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether the costs of maintenance and repairs of the incinerator are increasing because of age? And what is the expected lifespan of the incinerator before it needs to be replaced? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So clearly, everything goes up, sir. One of our challenges within infrastructure, sir, is we get an RPI increase, and often things like chemicals, materials go higher than RPI. So that is a challenge for us as a department. I don't have the figures to hand in terms of the incinerator itself. Sir, we're going to have to make a decision, sir, if we continue to burn waste on the island, or if we treat our waste differently as our near neighbours do, and that work is underway, sir, but there's no decision at this stage. Thank you.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. What is the expected cost of the incinerator to build a new incinerator today, and what are the alternatives to not building one? Thank you, sir.
So there are a number of alternatives, sir. I think if we were replacing like for like, which I think would be unlikely, there'd be probably £250 million is the figure I'm told. So we see that our neighbours export their waste to Sweden. It's a project I've been and visited personally. There are other methods that can be used, sir, and the team are looking at a whole host of potential solutions. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir, good timing, because my question is on the same subject. Building on that, when is a decision required to be made about the future of the incinerator?
So I believe a decision will be needed to be made in the next assembly, sir. So I would expect that decision to be made probably in the next 2 or 3 years. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Minister.
So given the long lead times needed to find a solution for waste, can the Minister explain what work streams are currently underway to work out whether or not we can pursue a recycling and export option versus an incinerator option?
Yes, sir. The team are currently working on a solid waste strategy, sir, and the team are working hard in that area, looking at a whole range of options. The plan is that we'll put a roadmap in place and then come back to the Council of Ministers and then this Assembly, sir, with a plan. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister, so following earlier questions about the play strategy, would the Minister support the introduction of a play fund or head of expenditure around play within his department, which projects and parishes, for example, could apply into to support the play strategy, perhaps even on a match funding basis?
So it's an interesting question. I listened to the answers with great interest, sir. I'm happy to confirm, sir, that the Parks and Gardens area and the Sport Division, both within infrastructure, work hard in terms of providing play facilities, both upgrading existing play facilities and providing new play facilities. And I'm delighted to confirm that we're looking at the installation of a pump track on one of our sites funded by government, sir, significant investment. So we're happy to talk to anybody about joint funding, whether that's public, private, public and parish funding, sir, and I'd be happy to discuss with any party about that. Thank you.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. I wonder if the Minister may also be willing to take away an extra idea onto that about ongoing funding for such a play fund, which could be linked to planning commitments which are already in place, for example. Perhaps would he consider exploring those creative ways that a potential play fund could be topped up on an ongoing basis?
So I'm a little concerned, sir, because only yesterday I was discussing with officials how could we make it simpler and cheaper and easier for people to get planning approval for not only play, sir, but also sporting facilities. So the Deputy is pushing at an open door. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. In his answer to a written question, I don't expect you to remember this, 2024, about putting a car park on Kensington Place, the Minister said the following, and I quote, "This site is identified for use as part of the new healthcare facility, and there are no current plans to convert this site into a temporary car park facility. Any temporary use of the site outside of the immediate control of Health and Community Services with the programme team represents a potential risk of delay to programme delivery." In a recent newsletter published by the Health Minister, he says that any work on Kensington Place is still in its infancy. Why is it not possible, therefore, to develop a meanwhile use car park to help businesses in that area?
So we are currently looking at that area, sir, not only for a meanwhile use, sir, but for permanent use. So the priority of both for the Health Minister has been in terms of the hospital, sir. And so I'm happy to work as I do with the Health Minister, and we continue to try and find solutions. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question.
Yes, sir. So I've received photographs from the site that clearly shows vehicles parked on the Kensington Place site. In his response to my earlier question, he said the proximity to the medical gas bottle store and sensitive healthcare facilities, including the mortuary drop-off and pick-up pathology, were also a problem. In planning application P 2024-1048, Dandara were unable to use the old Apollo site for parking of vehicles without permission. Can he confirm if such planning permission has been given to the site, and how is that possible? Is that possible given the response to my 2024 question?
Sir, I haven't been asked to approve any planning applications, sir, and I would have been answering on the advice I'd been given by officers about the particular gases involved, sir. It's something I'm happy to take away and look into. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Tadier.
So is the Minister conducting or considering the situation around pavements and walking routes in Jersey more generally, especially in areas where there are perhaps very narrow pavements or pavements don't exist at all?
Thank you, sir. Sir, road safety continues to be a priority. Sir, the Deputy and I have spoken about one pavement in particular, and I'm pleased to confirm that at 10 o'clock on Friday, I will be visiting that location with infrastructure officers to see what, if anything, can be done. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. So I wasn't talking about that particular pavement necessarily, but I'll try and be there myself and with my pram, perhaps, or my dog. But so there is a wider problem for islanders, I think, here, is there a minimum standard that islanders can expect when it comes to roads where they want to be able to walk safely to shops, to schools, to parks, etc.? And if so, what is that standard, and what would he expect that should be?
So it's a really interesting point. So for new pavements, there is a standard, but I take a slightly different view to my officers, because having a pavement that you can walk on is better than not having a pavement at all. So trying to get 1.8 metres is very difficult in a lot of areas locally. And if you can find a passing place, then it's much more acceptable, in my opinion. So we're trying to be flexible, sir. There are many areas around the island. And the other thing that the department are trying to do is to see whether or not we can utilise funds from the rural scheme, where it's accessing the countryside, to actually access villages around the island, sir. So we're trying to be quite flexible and try and find solutions. Thank you, sir.
Constable of Trinity.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister in a position to provide an update as to when the Trinity Village Improvement Scheme, which started in 2023, is likely to be completed?
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm pleased to say that the crossing at Trinity School has proven to be successful. So we've had very positive feedback from parents, pupils and staff. We've had some negative feedback from some commuters, sir. But I make no apology. The priority is to make it safe for people to cross the road to access the school, sir. Sir, the constable will be aware that we've been trying to find a solution for gateways. I understand that the constable does not like the gateways that we have in St John's at Zion, sir. I can tell him that they're very effective. They're also very efficient in terms of the cost. And so I'm happy to meet the constable to discuss this further. Thank you.
Supplementary question. Deputy Reniff.
Yes, sir. I congratulate Trinity on having the crossings. Would the Minister be able to update the Assembly on the crossing that has not yet happened at La Sargente et La Poulante, which has been waited for a very, very long time, and parishioners would love to know when something is actually going to happen there?
Thank you, sir. Thank the Deputy for his question. So it's a site I have visited. I'm very aware of the issues. So I visited that site on the way back from another visit, so there's no way that it could have been staged, and we watched school children struggling on the road there, sir. So I totally agree that it needs to be improved, and we are trying to make progress with the landowners, and I hope to be able to update the Deputy soon. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Yes, sir. Could I press the Minister to just give me some sense of a timetable for that?
So it's not information I have to hand today, sir, but I'm happy to get back to the Deputy. I will ask the team for an update later today. Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions for this Deputy Stevenson?
Thank you, sir. The Inspiring and Active Jersey update report published at the beginning of September in its next steps section refers to introducing a junior active pilot. Please will the Minister provide an update on that pilot?
So I'm delighted to provide an update on that pilot, sir. Sir, it's taken far longer than I would hope, but sir, next month, sir, I'm not sure when, it could be tomorrow, but next month we will be opening some of our gyms for young people with junior active, and also looking at putting on sessions for that age group, sir. We've identified a number of areas where we can help youngsters, particularly straight after school, and I hope to be able to give more detail of that in the next 2 weeks. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. How will the success of, or otherwise, of that pilot be measured, and how long do you expect it to be a pilot for?
Sir, if I can use the aviation term, I expect it to fly, sir. Sir, there's lots of people in a small catchment area that are close to facilities which are totally underutilised at present, and I look forward to seeing them being better utilised coming forward. Clearly, we will measure the uptake in terms of membership and usage. I can say at the moment, sir, some of these facilities are very underutilised, and I look forward to seeing them utilised. Thank you.
Colin Thompson-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Given that opposite Marina Court on the Esplanade, there's a grassy bank which comes under the Minister's administration, which is basically a patch of weeds and a disgrace to the island. Would he confirm that this is in fact managed by the department and what he's going to do to enhance its appearance? Thank you, sir.
In 3 seconds, please.
Sir, the Western Bus Gateway. Thank you, sir.
That ends the period of questions for this Minister. There are now questions for the Minister for International Development. Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. What does the Minister think about the peace plan announced by the President of the United States yesterday? Thank you, sir.
I'd like to thank the Deputy for her question. Obviously, this was just announced 24 hours ago, and so we are still considering all the details. But it is encouraging any efforts towards peace, to end the horror that we have in Gaza is to be encouraged. There are, I believe, 20 points in this plan, which include an immediate ceasefire and withdrawal, hostages and prisoners exchange, the demilitarization and disarmament of Hamas, all towards seeking a path for Palestinians to have a self-determination in their state.
Supplemental question, Deputy Hunt. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister give an update of what forthcoming events are taking place with regard to Jersey Overseas Aid, including tomorrow night's event, I think, that with volunteers? Would you talk to the purpose of that and the value of those?
Yes, thank you for the question, and it's extremely timely. As the Deputy alluded to, we have an event taking place tomorrow evening, straight from here, so there's no excuse for no States members to be there populating the event. We will be launching our 2026 community work projects. I shan't give the game away and tell you which countries. You'll have to come along to the event to find out. We have, Jersey Overseas Aid have been sending volunteers away for near on 60 years, and they are incredible for not only the beneficiaries, but I always think that the volunteers themselves get huge amounts from the experience. It's good to up their skills, to get along with a group of people and to see something of the world that they wouldn't ordinarily get to see going on holiday, for example. So I would encourage anyone who wants to come along to come tomorrow evening.
Supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Of course, in terms of the budget, the states will be giving and debating a budget on this, but does the Minister accept that also the multiplier effect that is achieved by volunteers putting themselves forward in Jersey has a much greater value, both in economic terms but also in social terms, to the output that Jersey Overseas Aid is able to achieve throughout the world?
Yes, there's nothing like first-hand experience. So I would agree, yes, the budget that we use on local people to send them overseas to volunteer and get a taste for international work in international development, it could ignite something in them because international development is an incredibly difficult career path to take for at many levels, but yes, it's a budget well served, and it gets the message out in our community. So it's all good as far as I'm concerned.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I'll give you a bit more controversial. The Jersey Overseas Aid budget is set to increase by 11% year on year, from just over 20 million in 2024 to just over 21 million in 2025. Whilst I believe it's important to continue on the good work of the JOA, can the taxpayers still afford to make the level of contribution when we have a cost of living crisis in our own island?
I'd like to thank the Deputy for that question and the opportunity. I don't know, I don't necessarily agree with his percentages, but we made an agreement, this Assembly made an agreement in 2000 to increase our aid budget by 0.01% per annum. At that time, the levels of our percentage were 0.25%, and for an international community, as we like to see ourselves, outward facing, that was not a good look. The aim, as the good Deputy will probably know, is 0.7%. We're way off that, but we felt that if we could encourage it incrementally, and have done for the past 5 years, we've now reached 0.3%, which is not the 0.7% admittedly, but we feel that by hooking it, that's not a very financial term, but by I'll use it, pegging it, that's what I was looking for. By pegging it to GVA, the percentage goes up when our economy goes up, but it also comes down when our economy comes down, and it will be coming down next year, actually, by about 400,000.
Supplemental question.
Yes, sir, and I just confirming those numbers. So the budget is calculated as 0.3% of GVA. Although this type of calculation may be appropriate for far bigger jurisdictions, does the Minister believe that this is appropriate measure for Jersey, and what other funding formulas might she consider?
I think as this formula is used by the UN and all the measurements across the board, so when we're comparing our giving with different countries, it is the right one. And I think it is the right one for overseas aid. It means that we're not here having a bun fight comparing sort of dying children with bobbies on the beat every year, which I would suggest could be very unedifying. It is a means of giving, and I think 0.3% for a wealthy island is appropriate. Thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. I wonder if the Minister could outline if there are any current aid operations operating in Gaza that Jersey is responsible for, and just update us on how those are progressing.
Could the Deputy repeat the question? I didn't hear.
Are there any aid operations operating in Gaza for which Jersey is responsible?
Obviously, Gaza is in crisis, so we don't have any sustainable development projects there at the moment. Our last monies are humanitarian, so for emergency aid. Our last monies went out, 300,000 went out in July to 3 different NGOs who we trust to deliver on the ground. I had a meeting, a Teams meeting with the country director of the World Food Programme in Jerusalem a couple of weeks ago, and our aid had arrived and had been delivered. Because I'm not sure if the Deputy is aware, in Gaza, aid was blocked by the Israelis from the 2nd of March to the 21st of May. That amount of time was unprecedented to block humanitarian aid. And so as soon as the blockade had lifted, we got our monies, our aid delivered. And commissioners will be looking again to deliver more as soon as possible. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Yes, sir, I thank the Minister for that answer. And I guess my supplementary is about the future delivery of aid. Can the Minister confirm that given that the aid organisations that we are using do seem to now be able to deliver aid to Gaza, that further humanitarian aid will be considered as a matter of urgency?
Yes, indeed, we consider it as an emergency. However, a couple of weeks ago, the Israelis imposed a further hurdle for aid getting in. They now want NGOs to register all their personnel and details, which many believe breach data protection, and many are fearful that if they have got to give names of Palestinians and aid workers to the Israeli authorities. So the NGOs right now are considering whether they want to register. So we are watching, and obviously the NGOs that we deal with, that we've done due diligence on, as I say, are our trusted partners. We'll have to wait and see whether they're still prepared to work in the area. Thank you.
Deputy Kovac. Deputy Kovac.
Thank you. As the Minister mentioned before, international development is often seen as a challenging sector for the public to engage to work in. What job opportunities are open through Jersey Overseas Aid or related programs?
We have an excellent program. It's the UN Professional Officer Placements, and we joined the scheme in 2021 along with 19 other countries like Australia, Canada, Denmark, Norway, etc. And this offers a local person the opportunity to work in international development for 2 years. Now, they work in humanitarian and emergency situations. We send one person a year. At the moment, we've got someone placed in Kiev. I don't know if members had the opportunity to read about it a couple of weeks ago. She wrote a fantastic report in the paper. We've got a couple in Cox's Bazar. But this is a wonderful opportunity, as I say, for islanders. They're paid a full salary, they work for 2 years, and they may or may not be offered a job with the UN at the end of it, but at least they've got experience going to seek work in other NGOs, if that's what they want to do. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes. What measures are in place to ensure these opportunities are accessible to local residents, including younger people or those without prior experience in international development?
Well, I guess the place to start is our community work projects. That way you get a flavour, you volunteer, you get a flavour of working in a developing country. So that doesn't take up too much of someone's time, so they can just see. We also offer an intern program or program associate for 18 months. We advertise these opportunities on our website. We also host what we call JIDN events, the Jersey International Development Network. We've got one coming up in October where we're going to speak about our Dairy for Development programs, which to my mind are our flagship program. Yes. And that too gives individuals, local people, the opportunity to work for 18 months with us, with the NGO in the UK, and then finally sent out to the field. So there is a stepping stone way before just applying for the UN placements. Thank you, sir.
Constable of Trinity.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister agree with me that at a time when the US are pulling out so much of their funding of humanitarian aid, it is continually and becoming more important that Jersey, as a global citizen, plays its part in delivering much needed aid to the communities within the world that are suffering at this time? Thank you.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with my fellow commissioner anymore. Yes, the way and manner in which the US pulled out of their aid programme has been devastating. I've seen it for myself in Zambia, going down the roads where US aid operated inoculation programmes are just boarded up. It had devastating effect on the beneficiaries, but also the aid workers themselves. So it's hugely important that we maintain a steady line and continue with our givings. Thank you, sir.
Well, that brings the time of questions for this Minister to an end. The final question period, of course, is with the Chief Minister. Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. The centrepiece of the budget is the creation of the Jersey Capital Investment Fund, which is designed to protect capital spending from the pressures of day-to-day spending. The Social Security Fund was set up to be funded by a formula that would protect it from pressures of day-to-day funding. However, the government is taking £250 million from contributions to fund day-to-day spending. Why should the public have any faith in the Capital Investment Fund meeting its objective to protect capital spending when the government is undermining that very principle with its raid on social security contributions?
They should have faith based upon the foresight that established the Social Security Reserve Fund and the strong performance that has led it to grow to almost £2.5 billion, with the projected growth figure of £3 billion by 2029. The Social Security Reserve Fund was based on a formula that was set up in a time when our long-term population projections were completely different to they are now. And the Deputy conveniently forgets, that we are still proposing to put £186 million into the fund. And I think it's important that we balance what the taxpayer puts into the fund, how it supplements the fund, with what the funds actually needs. And it is still, by just about every other reserve fund around the world, sir, in a strong state with 7 to 8 years of reserve, sir, which is unheard of in many other countries. So I wish the Deputy and other members would stop scaremongering, sir, about the impact on the fund. We have a very strong fund in a very good position, sir. And that's exactly the same principle with which we are establishing a Jersey Capital Investment Fund, sir, to do what the Reserve Fund has done, and that is protect the essential investment in our infrastructure and public realm in the years ahead. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
So the single biggest thing that would reassure the public would be if there was clear statements from the actuaries that would have made clear how much the fund had to, how much leeway there was for the fund to play with. Could the Minister explain why there is no statement from the actuaries to clear this amount of money being taken from the fund?
Thank you. I refer the Deputy to the Social Security Minister's answer that clearly dealt with a similar question earlier on. The Social Security Minister has been in communication with the actuaries. A full actuarial review is due next year, sir, which will take a long-term strategic view of the fund and how the states, the government and the taxpayer will support it moving forward, sir. The projections, the estimates in the budgets are based on careful Treasury analysis, and I support those budgets as more than adequate enough to ensure the Social Security Reserve Fund is sustained at the appropriate level.
Deputy Martin.
Thank you, sir. With the announcement in the UK about the BRIT card, the national identity card for all citizens, is the Chief Minister considering introducing something similar here?
Well, so we do have a number of choices of ID cards for citizens here. We have no plans to have a compulsory scheme. at this stage, and we are working with the UK government to understand more about what they are doing to ensure it doesn't impact or impede upon Channel Island residents, for example, because we know there are a lot of Channel Islands residents live and work in the UK, and we want to make sure they can continue to do so. So that's a work in progress, but currently no plans for a compulsory scheme in Jersey as yet.
Supplemental question, David.
Thank you, and I thank the Chief Minister for the answer. If Jersey was to introduce such a scheme, would the plan be to piggyback on that of the UK or to develop an independent Jersey scheme for Jersey citizens?
It's hard to speculate, so without seeing the detail of what's being planned in the UK. In general circumstances, it makes sense to join a bigger scheme if it works for us, but that's not always the case, so we'd have to wait and see.
Deputy Tanya.
So is the Chief Minister aware whether the UK recognises the arrest warrant that is still out for Benjamin Netanyahu? And if so, how does that influence Jersey's perception of the supposed peace deal that has been proposed between Trump and the wanted war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu?
I'm sorry, so I'm not fully cited on the details of the arrest warrant and the UK's position, so it's going to be difficult to answer other than to restate, so to reiterate that our foreign policy aligns with that of the UK, sir, and we would likely align with them depending on their stance in relation to that matter, sir.
Supplementary, I think.
So would the Chief Minister, as the lead for the government of Jersey, take every opportunity to reiterate Jersey's stance that genocide should not be tolerated, that illegal occupations should not be tolerated, and that we would expect any consideration from the international community that the UK might be involved with on our behalf by extension, because we don't have the right to sit at the table, that those points should be taken into consideration in any peace plan that seeks to secure a lasting peace in the region?
Well, yes, short answer to that is yes, sir, and I refer the Deputy to some of my answer I gave earlier on to questions about Gaza, sir, as we do with other issues of national and international importance. We make sure Jersey's voice is as loud as it possibly can be in our communications and our meetings with the government, sir.
Any other questions for the Chief Minister? Honourable the Saviour.
Thank you, sir. Further to the previous question regarding ID cards and my own question to the Treasury Minister, sir, if Jersey were to have a specific Jersey ID card, when I know our French neighbours can come to Jersey for a day trip using their French ID cards, it would be wonderful if Jersey could be reciprocated with that, visiting France using a Jersey ID card. But given my previous question, I think probably unlikely. Does the Chief Minister have a view on that?
Also, my view is the easier it is for people and goods to travel between jurisdictions, the better, and we find ourselves in a situation not entirely of our own making, which makes that difficult. We are aligning ourselves to work with the UK Common Travel Area ETA scheme, and we'll work closely to ensure we have a smooth transaction at the border as possible. I'm not sure that a wave to the harbour master will suffice moving forward, but we'll do our very best, sir.
Supplementary question. Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. As the Minister, our Chief Minister will well know, the budget for Visit Jersey has hardly changed over the last 10 years. Does he believe that it's adequate, and does he intend to try to raise it in next year's budget? Thank you.
Well, sir, coincidentally, I've been discussing the matter with the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development and with the industry. And I think we share the views that the Visit Jersey budget is not entirely adequate, given the, shall we say, unexpected drop in tourism numbers this year. We certainly didn't foresee that coming a year ago, not just because of the challenges around the transfer of the ferry service, but other geopolitical challenges that are affecting tourism in and to our key markets. So that, I understand, is a conversation the Sustainable Economic Development Minister is leading on with the industry, sir. And I'm sure he will be open to taking questions on that at some time in the future. But I firmly believe that it's time now to increase the budget, the marketing budget in particular for Visit Jersey, so we can help to rejuvenate tourism.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Noting the drop in visitor numbers, does the Chief Minister accept that Visit Jersey is the best vehicle to deliver the marketing of Jersey as a tourist attraction? Thank you.
I think that one of the best vehicles, of course, we rely on partnerships. Visit Jersey is important there at the forefront of the the marketing and above the line campaigns. They work closely with the industry. Of course, the industry itself are important partners. Just about every hotel has its own marketing plans and campaign. Equally important, sir, are the shipping companies and our airline partners, sir, who work collaboratively with the ports of Jersey. So they are extremely important, but it's part of a big team, important team effort, sir.
Deputy Randolph.
Yes, sir. I haven't quite finished on the Social Security Fund. I asked the question previously of the Social Security Minister and didn't get much of an answer, so I'm going to ask it again. The spending in the budget is long-term, but the funding mechanism is time-limited. What does it say about Jersey's reputation for fiscal prudence that we are committing to long-term expenditure without any idea of how we will meet that commitment and simply dumping the problem into the next government's lap?
As we move forward, our challenges around money stay the same. The solutions, we have to find different and better solutions, and that's at the heart of this budget. We've not accepted that formulas that are out of date are the best use of taxpayers' money given the challenges we are currently facing. And this government and future governments and future assemblies will never be far away from those sort of challenges. And that's part of the reason why we've put so much effort into curbing the growth in public expenditure. Members will know from the workshops that have been attended for estates members that we've focused on our population forecasts. We focus on the growth in the public sector. And now we're going to focus on another workshop in February, the solutions to that, sir. And the solutions aren't continuing to do what we've always done. As somebody once said, the definition of madness is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. We have to make changes. We have to work in what we consider to be the best interests of the taxpayer, sir. And for 2026 to 2029, those views are represented in the budget.
Supplemental question.
So nevertheless, the fact remains that we are using a time-limited mechanism to fund long-term expenditure. Can the Chief Minister confirm that the government's cuts, whether the government's cuts to the Social Security grant came from an objective assessment of how much the fund could afford to lose or how much the government needed to find?
It came from an objective assessment in relation to the current position and current forecasts of the Social Security Reserve Fund. And it also came from a reality that funding challenges have grown immensely since COVID. Coming out of COVID, we have seen an exponential growth in public expenditure, an increase of almost 50% in 6 years. All of that, sir, has led to the government having to take completely different view to future budgeting, sir. And that doesn't just include how we reprioritise spending, sir. It looks at how we manage our income, sir. It looks carefully at tax forecasts, which are based on economic forecasts, sir. And members will know we face challenging economic times, sir. It's a complex job budgeting year on year, sir, and it's one that's not going to get any easier as the years go by, which is why it's important we make the right decisions now, sir. The caveat is these challenges will never go away. And in 3 or 4 years' time, the deputy might be asking the same question, sir. You never know. I might be asking him the question then, sir, but the challenges remain.
Well, Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. In a scrutiny hearing with the Treasury Minister yesterday, the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel discussed the difficulties scrutiny panels and members have following the policy and governance work undertaken by ministerial groups, such as the Regeneration Steering Group and Ports Policy Ministerial Group, particularly in relation to the work they do understanding the delivery of state-owned entities. With that in mind, will the Chief Minister commit on behalf of his government to ensuring minutes and agendas from all ministerial groups are shared in confidence with relevant scrutiny panels to enable effective scrutiny?
I don't see any problem with that at all, sir. In fact, I thought that did happen, sir, but there's no problem at all with that.
Supplemental question. Deputy Tadier, we have
So would the Chief Minister be able to comment on the recent open letter that was written by the Chief Executive of Sandpiper saying that freight prices are pushing up the cost of living in Jersey?
Chief Minister.
Well, sir, I think the position needs to be properly articulated in the media, sir. Freight counts for the sea freight, ferry freight counts for, looking at the Minister, for 40% of the cost of freight. The vast majority of the cost of getting freight into stores is with the freight forwarding companies. And that is potentially where the costs are being margin maintained. We know that the
I'm sorry, Chief Minister, that brings the time for questions.
Already, sir?
Yes, time does fly when you're enjoying yourself, I noticed. Very well, there is nothing under J and K. Before we move to public business, decisions need to be made regarding whether to reduce the minimum lodging period in respect of two matters listed on the order paper. Firstly, there's an amendment to the proposition entitled Health and Care Jersey Advisory Board and Partnership Board, P52, which has been lodged by the Chair of the Health and Social Services, Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. Chair, do you wish to make the proposition under Standing Order 26.7, the lodging period be reduced to allow for this matter to be debated at this sitting?
Yes, thank you, sir. Briefly, to apologise to the Assembly and to respectfully seek the leave of the Assembly to reduce this lodging period to explain briefly the reason simply being that the desire to make such an amendment didn't arise within the panel until the deadline was upon us. And we felt that it was important to produce something of a good standard and also preferable not to have to ask the Minister to move his proposal. So I make that the request of the Assembly, sir.
Is that proposition seconded? Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Then those members in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Those against? Very well. The proposition to reduce the lodging period has been adopted. Secondly, there's an amendment to the Draft Sea Fisheries Minimum Size Limits Jersey Amendment Regulations P53, lodged by the Minister for the Environment. So do you wish to make the proposition under the standing order the lodging period is reduced to allow the matter to be debated?
I do, please, sir.
Is that seconded? Does any member wish to speak? Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Those against? Proposition is adopted. Very well, we now move to public business. The first item is the Draft Bank Recovery and Resolution Jersey Amendment Law P42, lodged by the Minister for External Relations. The main respondent is the Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, and I ask the Greffier to read the citation.
Draft Bank Recovery and Resolution Jersey Amendment Law 2000, the law to amend the Bank Recovery and Resolution Jersey Law 2017 to provide for the continuation of the Bank Depositors Compensation Scheme and to provide for the transfer of functions to the authority for the administration of that scheme. The states, subject to the sanction of His Most Excellent Majesty and Council, have adopted the following law.
This debate resumes, I think, following the adoption of the principles on the 9th of July, and therefore following a referral to the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. So I think we're dealing with the matter in second reading at this point. How do you wish to adopt the matter? Yes, Deputy Tadier.
Just a point of procedure, so I think it was my panel it was referred to, not the corporate services, so it's the economic and international affairs, but easy to confuse, I think.
Yes, well, I certainly did confuse them, and thank you for that clarification. So how do you wish to propose the articles, Minister? There are 55 of them in second reading.
En bloc, please, sir.
Are the articles seconded for adoption en bloc? Yes. Does any member wish to speak on any of the articles? Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. If the Minister's finished with it, yes. So the members will recall that this was called in by my panel. There were a couple of areas that we wished to look at. One of them was really to understand what the thinking was around the cap of the threshold. So the panel was very clear from the evidence it gathered that, first of all, the cap, when we talk about the cap, we're talking about the amount of savers' deposits that are protected in Jersey is set at £50,000. That's not changed at all since its inception. So when that scheme was introduced, only £50,000 of a depositor's money is protected. Those depositors could, of course, live anywhere in the world, but they would be for banks that are specifically in Jersey. The overwhelming response that we had to the public consultation was that the £50,000 is no longer suitable, taking into account that the rate of inflation over that period has been such that a figure around about the £85,000 mark would be more comparable to if it had kept rate with kept up with inflation. We also note that actually when the scheme was adopted, pretty much straight away the UK had already moved its rate from £50,000 up to £85,000. So this is already a scheme now which was implemented in 2009, so it's some almost 16, 17 years ago, and that actually the UK are now looking to increase the value of their protection for UK depositors. And for example, Europe protects deposits up to €100,000, and that's the same for Gibraltar. So our panel did actually consider whether it would be appropriate at the moment to introduce an amendment. I think we did give that serious consideration as to how that would work. First of all, we'd like to thank the Minister and her team for engaging in the process and coming to the public hearings, but obviously the board that will be doing the resolution themselves and who will effectively take over the job of the compensation board, so the Jersey Resolution Authority, for meeting with us on more than one occasion. And we accept that there is an argument that they need to be set up to receive their new powers, and that ultimately a piece of work will need to be done in how to deliver any changes to the compensation scheme in terms of what is protected, to make sure that the scheme is fit for purpose and that it's workable. But very much what we felt as a panel is that there needs to be a clear direction given from government, which hasn't been the case up until now. So we are disappointed that the work hadn't been done by this point. It's not a criticism, by the way, of this government, but I think successive governments have failed to get to grips with the value of the scheme over that 16-year period that it's been in existence. And it also seems clear to us that the question of increasing the value of the £50,000 protection wouldn't have even been considered had the panel not flagged that. So we ultimately believe that this is a political decision that needs to be made. We would recommend that it's made by this government, that they actually take an in-principle decision amongst themselves to say, look, we do want to uprate the value of our scheme to make sure that Jersey depositors have comparable protections to their counterparts elsewhere. I accept what the Minister for Treasury has said in the past, that of course not all depositors will be based in Jersey, and I think the response of the panel is so what? The scheme is to protect all depositors, and it is to provide a basic value for all depositors in Jersey, irrespective of where they live. And similarly, there will be depositors in other countries who are not resident in those countries who also benefit from a minimum of protection. But I hope that we've come to a position where the panel has added value in this particular regard, so that we accept that the ministers and the resolution authority needs to be given time to go away for the new scheme for their new responsibilities to bed in, and to find a way that any uplift in that scheme could be affordable and sustainable in the future. I also have to caveat this, that this is, it's both fairly niche in terms of that it's not everybody in Jersey that will be affected by this. It is, of course, people who have savings and savings above the £50,000 who might have a particular interest in this area. And it's also something which we hope will never need to be used. So clearly, banks going into failure, we hope are very rare, but of course that's also what we thought before 2008. Nobody necessarily envisaged that particular banking crisis coming along. But one area that we also recognise is that most of the banks that are, the high street banks that are present in Jersey will also have, if you like, parent companies be part of a wider structure. So when it comes to the resolution authority, a lot of those structures will be kicking in at a much earlier stage, making sure that such companies don't go into failure, if at all possible. One area we did consider was that there may be smaller banks in Jersey which don't have an affiliation with a UK parent structure, or may actually be based somewhere else which doesn't have a protection scheme of its own. And of course, I think we were told that in relative terms, it's those banks which may well be allowed to go into failure if it were necessary, rather than them being saved by being, the UK stepping in to buy those banks out, etc. So in relative terms, we think that it's actually those depositors in those banks who might be facing a higher risk. And of course, if they've got savings, let's say in the region of £200,000, currently their savings are not fully protected under the current scheme. It's only up to that value. So we think that, that there are, of course, comments that we've issued, new comments in regard of this. I think we're fairly comfortable that given the commitment that's been made by the Jersey Resolution Authority, that they are in a position to both start their work and look to review this in the next early part of next year, towards the second quarter of next year. I'll briefly, sir, read the recommendations that our panel made. So the first recommendation was that the depositors' compensation scheme limit should be raised, and that the Minister for External Relations, who's the Minister for Financial Services, along with the Council of Ministers, should, at its earliest opportunity, make a collective in-principle decision to do this. Second recommendation is that the Minister should outline the scope for terms of reference of the JRA's compensation limit, review it in recognition that the current limit is outdated and insufficient. The third recommendation is that the Minister for External Relations should share the scope and terms of reference of the review with our panel prior to the JRA commencing its review. Fourth recommendation is that once the review is concluded, the Minister should establish a clear schedule for the periodic review of the compensation limit to ensure that the limit remains appropriate. So of course what we're saying there is if and when government decides to increase the value of the scheme, it needs to be maintained. And that the Minister for External Relations should ensure that part of the JRA's forthcoming review, comprehensive stakeholder consultation should be undertaken, including both depositors and industry professionals, as well as the wider public. And then the last recommendation, 6, that the Minister should commit to providing clear information and education around the workings of the compensation scheme. So although it wasn't central to what we were asking during the review, a further finding came out from the Financial Services Ombudsman saying that the level of compensation that they are able to offer in terms of compensation under their scheme has also been going down over time, and it's not been upgraded since the inception of that particular scheme either. And we would ask the Minister to give consideration to all of those thresholds that are put in place. And whilst I can perceive that the Minister might be slightly frustrated that we've called this in. We do feel that value has been added by the scrutiny process. It was quite clear to us when we did our outreach in St Helier that it did engage quite a number of more members than we would have expected stopping, who talked to us about the scheme, but there was patchy knowledge from some people about what level their deposits were protected at. One member of the public came to us and said, I'm all right actually, because I bank with a UK bank and my savings are protected by £80,000, and that was a figure that doesn't correspond either to our scheme or to the UK scheme at 85, and actually we found that in this case it seemed that the depositor in question was banking locally, and we had to say actually you probably only covered up to 50,000, not the 85,000 that you might think you are. So there is an education piece that we think the Minister could do in working alongside industry and the JRA for wider education in this area. But I do thank members for allowing us to do this piece of work, and the report is there for members to read. And but as such, we are happy for the legislation to pass with the current articles in the second reading. And can I just thank the rest of my panel, in particular Deputy Wilson, the Vice Chair, Deputy Andrews, and also the officers who have worked very hard on this.
Very much, Deputies. Any other members to speak in second reading? No other member wishes to speak? I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like to begin by thanking the Chair and members of the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel for their diligent review of the amendment and its associated policies over the summer recess. I'm not going to respond to all of Deputy Taddei's comments, but I do think I should say that I don't think it was ever the case that a review was never on the cards. I think it was very clear that a review would take place, but not until the changes envisaged by this law had been in place, so that the JRA had a clear footing and the important administrative changes in place to allow them to take that work forward. I should also say that a review of the details of the scheme, both the nature of the deposit covered and the extent of the protection offered, and again I emphasise that it does not mean that £50,000 is all that people get back. They will eventually get, that is what they get back in a short term, and most people will recover the full amount of their deposit over a period of time. I'm told that's the case in bank collapses elsewhere. A review of the limits, the Minister has instructed that to take place to begin from Q2 in 2026, so that review will happen. A review of the compensation limit is a very complex and complicated process. It may affect both the public finance, because we have to lock funds away to protect the government investment. We currently have £100 million in the budget locked up for the contingent liability of a bank collapse and a claim on the fund. And it also, we have to remember, means that banks have to carry contingent liabilities and provision for the contingent liabilities in their balance sheets. And it's important that we always ensure that Jersey remains a place where banks want to operate and do business. So we have to be very careful that the banks can also source their responsibilities under the scheme. I'd also just like to remind members that the whole point of the resolution framework is to make it even less likely that a bank, a systemic bank, will fail, a bank that's important to all of us, all of our current accounts and deposit accounts, because it's not just, it'll also cover our current accounts, not just savings. And the resolution framework does mean that it is less likely that a bank may go into any form of insolvency in Jersey, causing the scheme to be affected. And that's including the case of the very small banks that the Deputy referred to. The main clearing banks that we all rely on will be part of the resolution framework, either here or in their home states, and the smaller banks are very, very unlikely to have deposits from Jersey depositors at a level where the deposits, the level of compensation is likely to be a big factor in their decision to bring money to Jersey. So, sir, just as a brief reminder to members of the Assembly, the amendment seeks to facilitate the transfer of the Depositors' Compensation Scheme to the Jersey Resolution Authority. It also introduces necessary enhancements to modernise and strengthen the scheme's delivery making sure that it is fit for purpose should it ever be required, however unlikely that may be. The articles provide for the continuation of the existing Depositors' Compensation Scheme, which currently operates under the 2009 regulations and which will now be governed under the Bank Recovery and Resolution Jersey Law 2017. This is primarily achieved through Article 35, which inserts the scheme into the resolution law under a new Part 7A. In addition, minor amendments support the ongoing development of resolution policy, reflecting the Jersey Resolution Authority's work and its engagement with industry and international bodies. The law is proposed to be commenced in stages to allow for the orderly dissolution of the Jersey Bank Depositors Compensation Board, and the transfer is expected to take effect from 1st April 2026, with final provisions for wind-up of the board expected to be commenced by 30th June 26, subject to completion of relevant formalities. Sir, I propose the articles and call for the appellant, please.
It is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on the articles in second reading. And I ask the greffier to open the voting and members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their vote. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The articles have been adopted in second reading, 44 votes for, no votes contra, no abstention. Minister, do you propose the matter in third reading?
Yes, please, sir.
Seconded for third reading.
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak in third reading? Those in favour of adopting in third reading, kindly. That is called for. I don't think anyone's rushed out in the meanwhile, so I ask the greffier to open the voting and members to vote in third reading. If members have had the opportunity of casting their vote, I ask the greffier to close the voting. The law has been adopted in third reading, 44 votes for, no votes contra, no abstentions.
May I propose the adjournment?
Yeah. Adjournment is proposed. The Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.